Good evening, brothers, sisters, and gender-norm resistors. And welcome back to the Pirates of the Geek Vortex. For me personally, it's been kind of a weird day because I actually had wound up staying up for about 24 hours and then getting about 5-6 hours sleep, something like that. Anyway, yes, we are back with Pirates of the Geek Vortex, so let's go ahead and jump on into the bridge here, and yeah, let's see who's around. Alright, looks like Caden's here already.
Hello, aren't I always?
Well, yes, you do tend to be here pretty much from about the point when the general announcement and everything's planned.
I lurk.
Hey, there is nothing wrong with lurking. If it weren't for lurkers, I wouldn't have had anybody watching any of my stuff when I first started live streaming.
Oh, this is true.
So how have things been, Caden?
Let's see. I am gearing up to go down to Texas in 2 weeks. I turned 32 on Wednesday. And then today I was part of a rather awkward impromptu date while hanging out with a friend. So I'm in a bit of a weird headspace.
Yeah, I could see that. Wow, that is just... Yeah, that's kind of weird. Impromptu date. Those are just... I don't even know how the hell that works.
Oh, we were hanging out, and then just out of nowhere, he starts texting. He's like, hey, we're going to go grab my girlfriend from work, and then we're just going to hang out. I was like, oh, okay. And, like, the entire time, he didn't speak, she didn't speak, and I'm just sitting here like, do I need to go? Do you want me to leave? What's the deal here?
Right? It's like, are you guys being weird because of me, or are you just weird like this anyway?
Like, I asked that. I was like, is it always this quiet? And then, like, he gives me this really weird face. Like, you know, he's getting angry that I asked. I was like, what?
It's a fair question.
We dropped her off at work. I was like, okay, so since I didn't learn anything, you know, during that interaction, why don't you tell me what you want me to know about her? And, like, he immediately starts gushing. He's like, oh, well, you know, she likes anime and board games and Star Trek and all this. I was like, so, in other words, had you mentioned any of those topics, we may have actually had a conversation.
Yeah.
It's okay. That friend's one of my older friends. He's like, I've known him for years. He's just very, very socially awkward.
Oh, I get that. Trust me, I understand that completely. For me, it's usually anytime that the number of people I don't know outweighs the number of people that I do know, that's usually when I'm like, I really don't have much to say. I don't know what to do here. This is nope.
Yeah. I mean, I think you know me well enough to know that once I actually get into the groove of something, I'm very bold and very outspoken. I've got no problem leading a room. But up until then, I'm just like in the corner, like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, right?
You're just like, just be yourself. No.
You don't know me.
I was like, there are several me's. I don't know which one of these would be acceptable with this group of people.
Right? Yeah. Oh. So yeah, I've been finally got around to doing what I was promising to do, or talking about doing the other day, as far as modeling out the Millennium Falcon hallway. It's not quite proportionally correct. I'll go ahead and put it up on screen here, and actually I can go ahead and put it up in the pirates section here too. So yeah, like I said, it's not quite proportionally right. The spacing is a little bit big in between the different pieces.
Yeah, but you know,
But
for what it is, it looks pretty damn good.
Yeah, that was literally just, you know, just a okay, here's an image of from, I think it was Return of the Jedi, and it's like, okay, so the basics are this. I never really realized that it actually had these little, like, weird lamps or weird circle lights on the wall.
Yeah,
it's
because
like,
I mean, I guess when they show them, they go by so fast you don't really realize the shape.
yeah, and it's like, looking at the reference photo, it's actually the domes that come out, or the, like, weird jagged edge domes that come out, actually don't provide light. Those have no light emitting from them in the pictures. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird.
What is the purpose? To look pretty.
Pretty much, yeah. It's like the actual circles that are like almost flush with the wall. Those emit light, but that's about it. Most of the light actually comes from below, from the side panels. But I mean, I was impressed with how well the light worked. How well those lights worked, because there's no other lights in the scene other than the glow panels on the floor and those little circles, and it still lit up really, really well.
It's that future tech.
Yeah.
So what was tonight's topic again?
Tonight's topic, okay, so it's how, briefly put, is how do multi-planet groups work? Specifically, like, okay, so one of the talk shows kind of had a kind of quizzed somebody as far as Star Wars Wednesday, of course, and it was, what planet is Luke Skywalker from? And that kind of confused me, because it's like, he was not born on Tatooine, so was he really from Tatooine? I mean, that's where he was raised, sure, but you know, was it really, you know,
yeah, because we're going by birth, he's Mustafarian.
Actually, come to find out, no, it was actually like this, he was actually, him and Leia were born on this asteroid. I hadn't realized this, but yeah, it was, oh gosh, what was it?
Yeah, they did make that kind of vague.
Yeah, it was, Polis Massa.
Yeah,
like
and in that case, do we go with the asteroid, or do we go with the, like, closest neighboring planet?
Yeah. It's like everybody, you know, everybody says that, well, Leia was from Alderaan. She was Alderanian. And it's like, wait, was she really, or would she be, would her and Luke be, have citizenship in Naboo, on Tatooine, from this random little rock in the middle of nowhere, from the nearest planet? How do you decide where somebody is from and what you know, what species they are? Because I mean, even within the species, it's like, they're not human, really. They're not from Earth. They're not Earthlings. So it's like, somebody whose family was always from Coruscant would be an actual different species from somebody who was, say, you know, their family was always came from Corellia.
Yeah. So I was trying to figure out the Klingon example. I was like, wait, what?
So yeah, if a human is born, if a human is born on Klingon, and, you know, say, you know, let's say for the sake of argument, you know, spends the first 5 years of their life on Kronos, the Klingon homeworld. They're born and born on Kronos, lived on Kronos for 5 years, then their family uproots and moves to Earth. Are they from Earth? You know, are they from Earth? Are they, you know, I mean, species-wise, sure, they're technically human, but it's like, would they also have citizenship in the Klingon Empire? How does that work?
So, as luck would have it, I've been talking to my ex today, and as she is a massive Star Trek geek, I had to actually think of that. And I remembered that, yeah, actually, according to the way the Klingon Empire works, they would be considered part of the Empire, but they would be, like, the lowest rate citizens.
Makes sense.
Yeah, because, like, that's what they did when they introduced, like, Worf and B'Elanna and all that, is because they're half-breeds. The Klingon Empire is like, okay, well, because you're half Klingon, we have to give you, like, a higher status, but you're never going to be as high as a full-blooded Klingon. And then there was a couple humans who were, like, born in Klingon colonies, and like, well, according to the Empire, I have citizenship, but I'm, like, a fourth-rate citizen, and I'm never going to have the same rights.
Yeah, that was one of the other things that I was thinking of was it was kind of the idea of it's like with the Klingons in particular, it's like would they be considered Klingons if they don't go through the proper rituals? Because Klingon society says, okay, in order to be a true Klingon, you have to go through, this walk of pain, which Worf never went through because he wasn't raised in a Klingon colony when he hit puberty. So they had to actually do that in the holodeck.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so yeah, it's like there's so many questions that it's like, how would you handle something like that in a multi-species, multi-planet government of some sort? I mean, of course, with the Empire took it the easy way. The Empire was, if you don't look human, or if you don't look, if you don't look human, you're subpar. We don't really care. You're an alien.
Yeah.
Which that always just it always irritated me when I would hear, when somebody would say, oh, well, maybe the Empire was right about this or about that. It's like, whoa, wait a second. What? They wanted everybody, they wanted all these aliens to either be in backwater planets or stick to their own planet. It's like they were not nice in any stretch of the imagination.
I always loved it when people did that when they were in Star Wars conversations. Like, well, maybe the Empire was right. I was like, no, don't finish the sentence.
Yeah, it's like
what do you mean? It was like, those are space Nazis, and you're about to say, maybe we're right.
Even not looking at it as space Nazis, one of the big things with the Emperor, at least in the extended universe, the now Legends universe, was the Emperor Palpatine knew about this, this very hostile, very warlike zealot race from outside the Outer Rim, from outside the galaxy, and was like, okay, we need to make sure that they are not able to influence our empire. So all aliens are, they're not full citizens. They're second-class citizens at best. They're kind of portioned off away from the rest of us. So it would make it even more, and that's kind of influenced into, the entire Empire's way of existence. So if this alien species comes in, nobody's going to listen to him. Nobody's going to take care of him. It's like, not quite. I wouldn't compare that idea and that idea as far as being space Nazis. I would say that's a bit more World War II United States with the internment camps. It was any of one of these people might be the enemy. Therefore, we're going to section all of them off and away from society so that nobody can infiltrate the U.S. and try and take us down from the inside. And that's one of the things that just, it's like every time I hear somebody try and say, well, if you look at it this way, was the Emperor really wrong? It's like, yes, he was, because you're like 2 steps away from agreeing with internment camps. Like real world internment camps. You don't want to go down that road. But yeah, it's always interesting when you see, like, I mean, then you take into account like something like Mass Effect, where it's like, well, everybody has their own culture, everybody is separate. There is kind of, sort of an overall government that's basically so bogged down in committees because everybody has, the founding races and these, the high-ranking races, everybody has to have their say before we do anything. So it's like, you have the Reapers starting to show up and stuff like that, and everybody's just kind of like sitting around in committees because, well, the non-interference conglomerate is basically saying, no, we are not going to vote for attacking or going at or chasing after them or capturing them. No interference. We just let things go.
Yeah. Oh no, Mass Effect was a good example of just how government can get fucked in general.
Yes, very much so.
I especially like how the very first thing that happens to you is like, okay, you are now above the law, except not ours, because, that'd be bad.
Yeah, right?
And then every time you actually exercise that power, they're like, what the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Well, which do you want?
Yeah, it's kind of like the you look at from the very beginning, Saren, who was a Spectre and was like, it was basically kind of like, well, we don't keep tabs on them. We don't keep tabs on the Spectres. We don't tell the Spectres what to do, so we can't really step in and stop Saren from doing anything. We need concrete proof before we even investigate what he's doing. It's like, that's counterintuitive.
Yeah. And then, of course, because you become a Spectre to replace Sarah, and they're like, maybe we should keep an eye on you. Oh, I see how it is.
It was kind of, maybe we should keep an eye on you. And at least within the first game, it was, you were kind of a test case. So it was like, we're gonna kind of give you those that power and that autonomy, but you're not. We don't really trust the fact that we still don't fully trust humans as far as this. So, yeah.
I don't know.
It was kind of a mess.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing with me was that whole, second and third game with you're cybernetic now, so are you more human, less human? What's going on? It's like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the third one, I kind of liked one of the overarching questions from the third one. And that was, were you indoctrinated at the beginning of the third game or not? Because there were a lot of little things that was like, oh, well, this sound from the Reapers is supposed to be a sign of indoctrination. It was supposed to be a sign of them trying to take somebody over. And, you're the only person who's seen this kid that's, that happens to show up every time you hear that sound and happens to try and like lead you away from actually opposing the Reapers.
Honestly, every time I heard the Reaper sound, I was like, really, this shit again?
Right. I don't know. Maybe it's because by the time I really got around to it, it was everywhere, but I'm just like, oh dear God, the only thing I could think of was how horrible that sound, that type of sound was ever since Inception came out.
Yeah.
It's like everybody fucking uses it. It's like, oh God, why you got to do this?
I remember I was reading an article where they're like, the three most terrifying words in gaming history right now are assuming direct control. And then every time I heard it, I was like, nope, this just means it's going to be easier to kill. It was like, because this AI just went from actually trying to avoid my attacks to just, I'll just throw myself at it, and if they die, we die.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are, there's a lot of stuff that it's like they do that type of stuff. It's like, I don't know. I mean, the whole are you in control or aren't you in control type of thing, just, it's gotten to the point where it's been overdone ever since BioShock.
Yeah.
It's like everybody tries to do that. Everybody wants to be this edgy. Oh, hey, are you in control? Aren't you in control? That's the big question. That's the big twist. And it's like, yeah, they've been doing this for a long time, guys.
But BioShock at least did it beautifully, because that honestly was an out of nowhere twist.
True. That's a good point. Yeah, it was still new enough to the point where nobody was expecting it. These days, it's kind of like, people tend to kind of really look for that. It's like, ooh, wait a second. Is there some big secret here?
Well, like, I remember when Infinite came out, everyone was like, all right, well, where's the twist going to be? Is it going to be that, Booker's not in control too and all this?
Yeah. I think that's the biggest. I think that would be the biggest. I think that's the next big twist for a game, is to have some common catchphrase that happens right before you quote unquote make a decision to do something for somebody, and then come to find out, no, that person that's just it's a personality quirk. That person just says that whenever they want somebody to do something for them. It has nothing to do with mind control whatsoever.
Yeah. And I think that's why it was so brilliant in BioShock, is because it was just so well hidden.
Yeah.
Because they spaced it out. It wasn't just every time you got asked to do something, it was mentioned. It was only a few characters who did it. So you didn't have any reason to suddenly be like, wait, why does this phrase keep popping up?
Yeah, it's like, it just, it was just kind of like, okay, yeah, well, it's part of the quest, it's part of the storyline. They didn't, it wasn't like, oh, I want you to kill all the little ones, the little sisters, and it's like, no, that's still, you were still making choices as to how to play and stuff like that and what you did. It's just, and even with games today, it's like there's certain things where you don't get a choice. You just have to do what makes sense and what you're told to do.
Yeah. There's a lot of them now that do the branching story paths where they're like, okay, well, you can do this or this, but be careful of your consequences. And then you just start looking at things, you're just like, okay, well, how did you do the consequences? That's my question. Like, did you make it obvious that this is a choice that's going to have consequences? Did you make it obvious that this wasn't actually a choice at all?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, like I said, a lot of these games, it's just, it's always interesting to see how they balance that idea of choice versus, well, we are trying to tell a specific story, so.
Yeah, like, Infinite gave you that choice at the beginning where you can choose whether or not you want to quote-unquote be racist, even though it wasn't a choice at all, because you're going to get discovered either way. But then I like the fact that, that affects things like in the end game, where it's like, okay, well, you remember at the beginning of the game where you made this choice and you thought that was only going to affect you a couple chapters? Guess what?
Yeah, the actually, I saw a video listing some of the choices that you make early on that you don't think are going to affect things until, you get to a key point and it's like, nope, you're fine.
Yeah. And I think that's what was always fun about, like, the older computer games, like some of the text to adventures and all that, is that there would always be little choices like that. There's some insignificant item where you're just like, I don't want that. I don't need to pick it up. Then you get to the end of the game, and you're like, oh shit.
Or like I think one of them was King's Quest V, where you buy a custard pie, and your character has to eat at times, and the description is always, oh, it's just a delicious, tantalizing custard pie. And come to find out, much later in the game, you actually have to use the pie you actually have to throw the custard pie in the face of a Yeti to get him to fall off the side of a mountain. And that's the only thing that works. So it's like, of course, if you eat the pie, it's like, yeah, you are completely screwed.
Or then you got the ones that, like, they make it sound ominous. It's like, are you sure you want to use this? So now you're like, oh shit, I better not use it. It'll come in handy in the end game. Only to find out, nope, it's completely useless.
Yeah, that King's Quest V was one of those. Was actually a very frustrating game in a lot of ways, because there were
From what I've heard of the series, yeah.
I mean, more so than the others, because it's like even the little things that are like like, okay, you could miss something and you're in a no-win situation. There's one point where you have to have an old boot and walk into a screen and throw an old boot at a cat that's chasing a mouse. There's no indication that you're supposed to do this. There's no, it could happen when you don't have the old boot or something like that, and that will get you a no-win. That will lock you into no-win route. Because that little mouse is supposed to come and save you later, and if you don't save the mouse, yeah, he's dead. It's like, well, shit. I remember,
which has now become such a staple of Silent Hill games that everyone's constantly looking for them. That's actually the best example I can think of what I was talking about, like where they're gonna make every choice seem important and ominous.
Yeah.
So of course you're like shitting yourself, and then it's like, wait, no, that didn't do anything.
Yeah, it's always, yeah, I mean, I can understand the problems that they have of it's like, okay, so which way do we want to go? And we want to keep the players on their toes, but let's face facts, people expect the same old thing. They expect what they are really familiar with. So it's like, how do we give them what they want, but still make it interesting, unique, and just different from everything else? And I guess that's one thing that another YouTube channel has been kind of. Some people have said that they've been influencing games and movies and TV shows and stuff like that. It's the theorist channels, game theorists, film theory, etc., etc. And they were talking about how some directors are like, well, people are always trying to figure out what's really going on. People are always trying to figure out the end of the series or the end of the movie before, and trying to figure out, all this stuff out. And I guess some of them have actually gone so far as to go in and change things because somebody put up a theory that, basically explained it all. And they blame the when it gets a poor review, they're like, well, you have this theory channel to blame for it.
Yes, let's always blame somebody else. It's not because our poor writing.
Yeah, and it was interesting because somebody had asked J.R.R. Martin about it. Like, so, people have been, people theorize about your shows and theorize about your books and stuff like that, and where you're going and everything. What do you do when somebody gets it right? He's like, well, you just keep on going. You can't change it because somebody figured it out. That's not fair to them, because they figured it out and you're trying to just prove them wrong. You're fighting against a small subsection of your audience.
Exactly.
It's like all of a sudden all of those clues that you dropped back in previous episodes, those go nowhere. So that's just shitty writing.
Yeah, I was having a conversation almost like that earlier. Whereas, like, I think writers nowadays, not all of them obviously, but a lot of writers have forgotten the fact that if you want your work to be taken as an allegory for something, you need to actually write that in the narrative.
Yeah.
You can't just, like, write the whole thing, have it go one way, and then suddenly you should be like, oh no, it was actually this all along.
Yeah, it's like, if you don't want people to theorize about it and stuff like that, don't drop hints. You can't drop hints and say, and hope that nobody's going to figure it out, so that it's going to be this big shocking reveal. It's like, if your writing is good and you're dropping good hints, somebody somewhere is going to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think the two examples we used were the Harry Potter universe and the Matrix.
Yeah.
Because, we're getting all these things now. We're like, oh, well, actually, the entire time it was a metaphor for this. It's like, no, it wasn't.
Right. It's like, no. Yeah, there's the Matrix was just one of those. It was one of those things where it's like the whole thing is it's right there in the name. A mathematical matrix is a complex problem that is going to boil, but when you break it down, it should come to a 1 = 1. It should be the same on both sides. Which, and it's like, well, obviously that's what had to happen is, you had to have Neo, the one, on both sides of the fence. He had to be part of both sides of this matrix. So yeah, him being absorbed by Agent Smith, it's like, well, yeah, that's the only way it was gonna that's the only way that it was going to end. It's the only thing that actually makes sense. And so many people were pissed off about it. We're like, what? That huh? Why? I don't get it. It's like, it's literally in the name.
Yeah, I mean, it's these things where, like, the creator, it sits there and like, okay, so I wrote a heavily Christian-influenced, obviously, Byronic hero, Judeo-Christian thing, it's the standard hero's journey. And you're like, okay, we get it, we liked it, it was awesome. And they're like, but really, it was actually this. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's...
It's like, you made your character literally an allegory for Jesus, and now you're like, but he wasn't Jesus. Alright, so what was he?
Yeah, I mean, it's... The Matrix was kind of... honestly, the Matrix was kind of a mess. The original Matrix was just kind of a mess, because it's like...
Yeah, I didn't even watch the newest one. I just saw, like, the reviews and the CinemaSins for it, and then past it, I was like, I don't need to see this.
Yeah, it's kind of the same here. It's like, if it was up on, like, if they put it up on Hulu or something like that, I would probably watch it. But it's like, I'm not gonna get, I'm not gonna get the what is it? I think it's on HBO Max.
Yeah.
And it's like, HBO Max has really doesn't have anything that I'm interested in. So it's like, yeah, not gonna pay for another streaming service. Thank you. And
plus, I mean, even without going into the writing, the moment they announced it, I just got irritated because they're like, "Oh, we're making another Matrix." It's like, okay, so we're gonna be focusing on like new characters and everything. Like, Neo's coming back. It's like, no.
I do appreciate how it appears that they did it, at least, because they did it. I mean, they did it right, and it was kind of they kind of pulled a John Carpenter on it.
I mean, it's not the most ham-fisted way of doing it. It's just like what irritated me. I was like, no, Neo completed his journey. He did his task. He, found himself. He did his duty. He saved the world. That's what he was designed to do. He doesn't have a journey to complete anymore. Why are we bringing him back? And Trinity came back. I was like, oh, okay, now you're just pulling out things because, apparently we can't have a series without these two.
Yeah, well, it's from what I hear is, as far as like Neo's or Mr. Anderson's side of things, it was, it was kind of make a sequel. It's like, why am I going to make a sequel? I've said I've done what I wanted to do. I've already done this. It's over. It's done. No, we need a sequel. It's like, why? And he's really questioning the whole idea of making a sequel to the Matrix game, which, is the in-world explanation for everything. And it's like, why am I gonna? I've already done this once. That's why I say they pulled a John Carpenter, because when John Carpenter was supposed to, when they wanted him to make Escape from L.A., his main question was, why am I gonna make that movie again? I made Escape from New York once. Why am I gonna? It's not gonna be any different, guys. It's really not gonna be any different. It's gonna be the same old fucking thing. So why are we doing this again?
Yeah.
And it really shows when it's just kind of like, everything's just kind of like, yep, okay, we're doing this again, and this, and this. And Snake Plissken's just kind of like, fuck it, boom. No build up, no nothing, just like, nope, all right, that's it, boom, done.
Yeah. I mean, that was always something I loved about Escape from LA, is that you can sit there and watch it, and you're like, nope, we already know what's going on. Snake knows what's going on. To the point that, they inject him with a virus. He's like, you son of a bitch, you're doing this again?
Yeah, right?
They're like, no, it's not a bomb this time, it's a virus. He's like, oh, points for creativity.
Yeah. And what's interesting with that is that was originally John Carpenter's original idea for Escape from New York was, they tell him that they're implanting this bomb in him, but really there is no bomb. It's nothing. It's just one big smoke screen to one big ass light to get him to do what they want. And he's like, for Escape from LA, he's like, fuck it, I'm actually doing it this time. I don't give a shit whether you guys like it or not. I'm doing it. I wanted to do this originally. You nixed it, so we're doing it this time.
And then, I love the fact that he even calls it out in the movie, because that was actually pretty funny. Is, he gets to find it. He finds his old colleague, and they're like, oh, yeah, right. And let me guess, they've injected you with some super virus that's going to kill you in 70... Yeah, bullshit.
Yeah, it's like, and they actually named it's like, I don't remember what the name of it was, but they actually named... Yes. They're like, oh, yeah, let me guess, you've got this, right? That's a bad case of the flu.
Yeah, no, what was the exact line? Oh, yeah, it was, let me guess, you have to get the president's daughter and save the world and do all this, and they injected you with the Plutoxin 7 virus, and you have less than 24 hours to live. It's bullshit, honey. Hershey was an amazing fucking character.
Yes.
See, that's what I always thought, was that if you were going to make a third escape movie, because they wanted to make Escape from the World, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. It's about the only way you can escalate a sequel. But, I was like, if you're going to make a third one, make a prequel. Show us what happened in Cleveland, because I want to see how he met Carjack Malloy and how Carjack turned into Hershey.
Yeah, I mean, and that was actually kind of supposed to be in the original Escape from New York, was they were actually supposed to show, and I think they actually filmed some and still have some of the footage of them of what the bank robbery where Pliskin was caught. They were supposed to actually show that. They were actually supposed to show him getting caught and show Carjack Malone basically ditching him and leaving him behind to get captured.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also the fact that we show that Snake is not shy about, showing that he knows exactly where people stash their shit, but also that he is the type of guy that takes the time to learn someone that well.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, we could have used earlier in the movie, but...
Yeah, well,
it's a good movie. It's pure action cheese. That's what it was meant to be. It serves its purpose.
Yeah. And yeah, it's, I mean, there were certain expectations back when, like Escape from New York was released and stuff like that. It was, you had a very different, Hollywood movies were a very different thing back in the 80s.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's so funny. I'll watch something with my parents back, like, nowadays from the 80s, and they're just like, holy shit, we got away with this back then? And I was like, oh yeah. Yeah, you did.
Absolutely. I mean, well, PG-13 was essentially what R-rated is today.
Yeah, well, it's not even like the, PG-13 being a lot harder than it is now. It's like the narratives where they're like, oh yeah, this is a great romantic comedy and we're gonna watch it, we're gonna love it, and then suddenly it's just like, this is a lot rapier than I remember.
Oh yes. Okay.
I was like, yeah, that was a thing.
and the 80s gets a lot of shit for it, but it's like, as far as movies, TV shows, music, the whole 9 yards, it's like, I'm sorry, have you guys never heard anything from the 50s? Like, how many songs were there about, like, oh, you just turned, I've seen you grow up, you just turned 16.
Yeah,
you're
just
mine
like,
now. It's like, wait,
no.
16's a little too young still, buddy. Not to mention, holy shit. How did the boomers not recognize what grooming is? It was in 90% of their songs.
Yeah. See, that was a situation that, you and I were involved in. And that's what really made me call something out, is like that person used the exact phrase. They're like, oh yeah, this is this person. I groomed them. And I was like, oh, unfortunate choice of words.
Yeah, it's like, ooh, you really want to go there? You really?
And like, well, I mean, like, I made sure that they, do things my way and blah, blah. I was like, you are not making this sound any better. Just, the love of God, just shut your mouth. Yeah. Like, there's nothing wrong with my. I was like, there's a lot wrong with your phrasing. Please choose better words.
Yeah.
I was like, especially in this situation, you could have been like, I taught them, I trained them, like I showed them the ropes. No, you went with grooming, and that I don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, yeah. I was listening to, I had to run drop something off in the mail the other day, and as I was coming home, a song came on the radio. I usually wind up listening to the oldies station just because that's what I've always listened to in the car ever since I was a kid. And it was like, yeah, it was this, you're sweet 16, you're sweet, you're 16 and you're mine. And it's like, oh,
yeah,
that's creepy. It's, I've seen you grow from a little girl into a sweet 16. And it's like, okay, so you've been involved in this kid's life since she was, no, just bad.
Like, I just love doing that now. Like, go to media from the old days, and it's like I listen to it, it's like, oh, this is deeply uncomfortable.
And the one that everybody jumps on, is the one that honestly is not nearly as bad as people think.
Yeah, it was like, remember when everyone was getting upset about Baby It's Cold Outside?
Exactly. It's like you do realize that this was written back when a woman staying at a man's house was scandalous. This was a scandal, and it's brought up in the song that what are the neighbors gonna say? It's like, yeah, it was very much a scandalous idea of a woman sleeping with a man that they're not married. She should be going home to her parents' house.
Like, I get the argument where they're like, oh, he is definitely trying to force her to do this even though she's very uncomfortable. It's like, well, yeah, but is she uncomfortable because she doesn't want to, or just because she's scared of the social implications?
Yeah, and the fact that in the song she continually mentions the social implications, it's like, that's it. And the whole, well, say what's in this drink, that's an excuse for her. That's kind of a, oh, well, maybe if I had a little too much to drink and it wasn't safe to go home, maybe that's kind of an out. Maybe that's a way that I,
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, if I was drinking too much, I obviously can't be expected to drive.
Yeah, it's kind of like the people that say, oh, well, I'm gonna accidentally leave my phone at this guy's house so that I have an excuse to come back later. Yeah. And then it's, oh wow, it's really late. It might not be safe for me to walk home or something like that. And it's like, it's an excuse to make it okay as far as society is concerned to stay there, for something to continue to happen. It's just they didn't have, there wasn't that much back in the day.
I'll say, like I said, I see both sides of the argument, but a lot of that is people putting modern day standards and assumptions onto the situation. Like, okay,
exactly,
yes, it sounds bad. However, this was the 50s. Roofies were not very big back then.
Yeah.
Mostly because you didn't need them if you were drinking a vodka tonic, because that shit would probably kill you in the first place.
Right?
I was I was trying to remember what it was, but I was watching something earlier, and they're like, oh yeah, we found like the original recipe for this drink. Like they said they're finding like the original Coke recipe. I was like, well, I doubt it is because it's never been published, but okay. And like, we're gonna go make some like old-fashioned 50s style Coke, and I was like, you gonna include the cocaine?
Yeah, right. That's the thing that gets me. It's like I've heard people like my mother's age or my grandmother's age talking about, well, I don't see why people need to have legal marijuana. We didn't have anything like that when I was growing up. It's like, no shit, you had cocaine in your soda, and you had
right.
your toothache pills contained morphine.
We weren't as depressed as you. Oh no, you were depressed. You just didn't fucking realize it.
Yeah, it's like you were depressed, but you could get these. You could get the pleasant little drugs to make it easier.
Shit.
Just like, yeah, go out and buy a cough medicine that's like contains 25% alcohol.
Yeah,
and it's like,
or the ones who are like, this is 95% heroin or 95% opium, and you're just like, oh, this explains a lot.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, opioids were in fucking everything back then. Like I said, you look at the children's toothache medication had morphine in it.
Right?
You're
Yeah,
giving
it's like
morphine to your kids. It's just like, here you go. Yeah,
this is
that'll knock you.
50% morpha, and I was like, oh. It's so fun when I get friends who don't like realize what that is. They're just like, what's morpha? And I was like, what does it sound like?
Yeah.
I was like, first of all, turn off your gamer brain. We're not talking about the Zelda. It's not a mini boss.
But yeah, I mean, well, that's like I've seen a couple people that are like a few people that are like, oh well, things were more interesting during Prohibition. We should bring Prohibition back. It's like, you do realize Prohibition was not evenly applied. It's like the point where Prohibition was rescinded was when the rich people's stockpile of alcohol was nearing depletion and they couldn't get any more. It's like all these people that had massive wine cellars in their basement or had like, just cases of vodka or brandy or something like that. It's like they didn't give a shit because it was illegal to manufacture alcohol and it was illegal to sell alcohol. You could drink alcohol if you already had it. So it was really targeted at the poor.
Well, hello, wrestling.
Yellow.
Hey!
And
I was wondering what that sound was. I'm like, did something just disconnect? Is my mouse still working? Yeah, okay.
I mean, yeah, it was pretty unevenly distributed, but that's what I meant by, back in Prohibition, it wasn't just that things were interesting, it was also things were interesting because you weren't drinking, professionally manufactured alcohol. This wasn't pure. It wasn't safe, really. You were drinking some shit some guy made with gasoline in his bathtub.
Well, sometimes it was not proper, proper alcohol. Other times it was too pure. We're talking like moonshine that will make you go blind for 3 days.
Yeah, the 125 proof. There's a reason it's called White Lightning.
So how are you today, Rascalin?
Oh, it's been a day with a lot of overtime, and you?
Wound up staying up for 24 hours, then taking I think it was about 6.5 hour power nap. Actually, it might have been 5. No, it's 5.5 hours because I went to sleep about 2 o'clock and woke up at 7:30. It's been an interesting day.
No sleep schedule survives.
Not with the weather we've been having, that's for sure.
Oh, the endless rain. Oh
yeah.
Dear. Oh. Our mud was getting dehydrated. I'm glad we fixed that.
Yeah. I need a pleasant, not too warm, not too cold, dry day to mow the yard. Because, dear gods, it's kind of like what happened a few, like 5 or 6 years ago. It's like a week's worth of rain that just, you can't mow when the grass is that wet. And, the grass is getting plenty of moisture, so it's just shooting up. It's like, oh, this is going to be torture. It's going to be just a pain in the ass to cut, but it's like, all right, yeah, not much you can do, though, when it's like every single day, it's like, nope, it's not pouring down, so we're not in danger of floods, but it's just enough, but it's raining steadily. So yeah, I think we just as you might have caught on, we were we had moved on to talking about things like Prohibition and just how many drugs were in general products back in like the 50s.
You mean before people learned that there were alternate ways to legally market an opiate?
Oh no, this was when opiates were in just about everything, and like,
yeah,
Well, like one of the examples that we were talking about was like the children's toothache medication. If your child has a sore tooth, give them this. It's got morphine. Or like Coke, using literal cocaine.
It's like, why is it called Coca-Cola? Because it uses the leaves of the coca plant. You mean you mean that plant?
Yes.
I mean, then you get 7-Up, which literally in its advertisements just admitted, they're like, yes, we put something in here that will pep up your step. It's an antidepressant. We're not going to tell you what it is. Just know it's in there.
It's a weird thing. I don't get affected by opiates, as I learned the hard way in the hospital once.
God, I hated learning that about myself.
And it's apparently more common than we think. I know I've met a few other people since with the same problem.
Yeah.
And I'm told that I'm not sure what the cause and effect is here. Apparently the pandemic made it worse, that there's now more people immune. I don't know if that's COVID annihilated some people's receptors, or if people were in severe pain, took so much opiates it burned out the receptors. I'm not certain.
Yeah, see, for me, I've the few times that I have had to that I've had pain medication where they're like, okay, well, you know, like codeine or any of their big brothers, basically. Yeah, it's always just made me nauseous. I've always just been nauseous as hell from it. It's like, yep, nope, this is not for me, thank you. But I mean, I could see it being something like, yeah, the. I mean, we still have no idea how much COVID is screwing people up, in various different ways. Like the childhood diabetes has skyrocketed, and they've actually have tied it back to these kids had COVID, and these are the ones that are now, you know, developing diabetes, even when there was little to no indication that they were in danger of it. So I could totally see that, you know, that it being, yeah, there's something going on that's, you know, it's changing the you know, it's either blocking the receptors or something like that.
Here's a horrifying thought for the world.
Oh, God.
Somehow it manages to alter someone and blocks the reception to alcohol.
Ooh, that.
Wouldn't affect my teetotaling ass, but someone out there has just heard what I said and went, no!
Meanwhile,
I was gonna say, thank you, Askren. I've now developed a Twitch.
meanwhile,
doing
me,
my
who has
job.
never been affected by alcohol, is just sitting there like, huh, interesting. You know, I was at that age that I was supposed to be partying when I found out that opiates and drugs in general and alcohol don't have the same effect on me. So it's like, oh, great. So what vice am I supposed to develop?
Yeah.
It was a gambling addiction, I guess. That's what I got to do.
See, for me, in high school, I found out that marijuana smoke does nothing for me other than makes me the smell of it makes me nauseous.
Yeah.
It's like
It is kind of rank smell.
it's like, well, that's it's like, you know, and it's like, you know, in the early 90s, that was the big thing. Everybody was, you know, oh, they were finding all kinds of sneaky ways to smoke pot, you know. And it's like, can't do it. Can't even hang out with them when they do it. It's like, nope.
Yeah, I actually find it hilariously ironic that it turns out my mother is allergic to pot,
Oh,
and
fun.
like
Huh.
I just started cackling my ass off, and everyone's like, why is that funny? You know, and it's a horrible thing, and I was like, because her maiden name is Hemphill. That's literally her family business. And then we found out it's actually because hemp and marijuana are a relative of the rose family, and she is deathly allergic to roses, so it makes sense.
Yeah, that's allergies are so weird at times. Like
They can go away and they can come back.
oh yeah, like
And sometimes you might not even realize you're allergic.
oh yeah, that's always the fun one. Well, like yeah, well, like my mom, she has never tried shellfish, she has never tried shrimp, anything like that, because just about everybody else in her family is allergic to it. She doesn't know if she is or not. She's just steered clear of it her entire life. Then,
When I was born and up until I was about 11 years old, I was immune to cow-based dairy. Now, it wasn't lactose intolerance. I could have goat milk just fine. And I could have beef. But milk from a cow or anything made from milk from a cow? Nope. Bye-bye immune system when that happened. The whole thing would just stop working.
ugh. Yeah, that's a pretty nasty surprise.
I was in a position where there was no potable water to drink, and I had to start drinking milk. This was around age 11. Long story, but I found the milk. I actually liked the taste of it, and I figured, okay, I can deal with getting a cold this week, whatever. It's like, nope, you're not going to get sick. It's gone away. So I've been able to drink milk for the last 30 years, and I've kind of been overdosing on it the whole time.
Yeah, I do the same. I used to get a horrible rash when I drank milk, and nowadays I just don't give a shit. It stopped, and I was like, okay, fuck it, milk everything.
Yeah, ice cream, cheese. Just,
Oh god, I will murder the man if he tries to come between me and cheese.
I mean, this is why Alfredo is such a wonderful food. You're putting butter with cheese, with milk or cream. It's like, it's all the milk. Thank you.
See, yeah, my brother is one who he when he was young, he could drink milk just fine. Of course, when he started getting older, about 7 or 8, he wound up becoming lactose intolerant. At least as far as just like drinking milk. He can still eat cheese, but then most cheese, when it's during the aging process, the lactose actually is consumed and deteriorates during the aging process. So I guess that kind of makes sense. But yeah, it's like, and come to find out, that's actually how the human body works. Your body is supposed to lose its dependence on milk once after usually about 5 or 6, maybe 7 or 8. Like the vast majority of people wind up becoming lactose intolerant to just drinking milk at that point, because the body's like, no, we don't need this. We can get the calcium that we want from plenty of other sources. We don't need milk.
My body has learned to deal with milk, but I did develop Meniere's disease, which for all intents and purposes may as well be an allergy to caffeine, salt, artificial sweeteners, alcohol. Never tried the alcohol part, but I can tell you the first 3 work. But the reason I have that is because, about 8 years, no, not even that. Sometime during my teenage years, I spontaneously just started having vertigo spells, and then I found out what they were from.
Ah, yes, that's always fun.
And it took 2 decades after that for me to find out why I had the vertigo spells.
Okay, so yeah, Curious is in the chat here. Hello there, Curious. Yeah, see, she's saying that she always drank a lot of the calcium fortified orange juice, which is, yeah, that's just yet another way that we can get the calcium. But there's actually a lot of leafy green vegetables that are pretty high in calcium.
And for people who need whatever the B vitamin is that vegans do not tend to get, there's seaweed that can get that for you.
Well, there's actual vitamin B, there's beta carotene.
Right, but there's a particular vitamin, I don't know if it's B6 or 12, that a vegan diet typically won't get you. So, time to source the seaweed.
And then we have the potato. Nature's, screw it, we're just putting everything in here.
Yeah, right? Oh.
Which, the only thing you can't get from a potato is vitamin K.
From normal potatoes. Sweet potatoes actually do have vitamin K.
Shame I hate sweet potatoes.
Yeah, vitamin
They also
K.
have a lot of potassium as well.
I think it's vitamin K that has the that gives fruits and vegetables a yellowish color. So anything that's yellow or orange generally will have that they get that from the vitamin K, if I remember right. I think that's.
I know beta carotene is going to make things orange.
Mm-hmm.
I know that one weird texture you get in sweet potatoes, spinach, bananas, comes from its potassium.
It's always weird how we get off on such varied topics.
Right?
Nerds? We're complete nerds?
It's like we were starting out with, alright, so if you're born on this planet and you move to this planet, which planet has custody of you? And now we're like, hey, so did you know that leafy green vegetables can be used to make explosives? You know, it's like we were saying in chat, that's just how we work best.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, I mean, this is the type of thing that's just, it works. It works best when you know, I mean, I did something similar to this with a friend of mine, where we had one topic and we really stayed on that topic, and it was good, but it's like, if you're gonna have more people in, there's no way you're gonna stick to a specific topic. It's just not possible.
It's true.
And besides, if we're allowed to ramble and do all this, we come up with some pretty good questions.
Sure, we may have started off on a whole topic, say about Dungeons and Dragons campaigns we've been in one night, and by the end of the night we may have accidentally tumbled down the well of Christian heresies, but we'll get back around to D&D one more time again, but it's only because we started an entire conversation on human immune systems, and we all know that would happen.
I think we did that last time. Something similar.
Yeah.
No, actually, I asked that question of my Discord group a couple nights ago. I was like, hey guys, I need help writing, like, this story I'm writing. I was like, I need help, like, creating the belief system. I was like, it's not quite a religion, because I haven't decided if, like, it's going to be a proper religion. I was like, also, I need to figure out what I'm going to call it and how the system works. I was like, but the problem is, every time I think of it in my head, I think church, because that's just the easiest term. But when you say church to anybody else, they're immediately like, oh, so it's a Judeo-Christian system, and you're obviously using the Catholic Church, and everything's going to be like this, and they're going to have a pope. I'm like, no.
No. God, no.
I was like, no, I use church because that's just the word I use when I think of, place of worships, temples, and holy men that do weird, stupid shits. But no, this is not supposed to be based off Christianity in any sense of the form. Also, it sets a weird precedent when you mention, like, oh, hey, this is a religious organization that's doing shady shit and, rigging laws and being corrupt, and like, you mean Christians? No, actually I didn't, but the fact that you jumped to that.
Interesting.
That says a lot about you, I think.
I'd almost say that sounds like whatever the majority religion is in my country of origin.
I mean, there is a certain point where religions were kind of there to basically to try and help. A lot of the rules and regulations and stuff in various religions were actually there to protect the people.
Please don't eat pork in the desert. It's a death sentence.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was before they knew about trichinosis, so they, you have to get it up to a specific temperature in order to kill that off. Otherwise, yeah, it's gonna be bad. The whole no meat on Fridays was to give, was basically to give the Catholics, the majority of the people, one day away from eating meat, which would, at the time, was one of the big problems was gout.
Oh, I thought it was to help the fishing industry at the time, actually.
No, look back at, like, well, I mean, hell, people like Benjamin Franklin had gout. It was generally quote unquote the rich man's disease because, well, the rich people back in the day were the ones that ate meat primarily and just meat, and it wasn't healthy. So they're like, hey, okay, now it's a religious thing. You have to have one day without meat. Although they still allowed fish, which is a little, I mean,
yeah, I always laugh at that. Meat. It's like, fish is not meat. How?
That's why I always thought it was to help the fishing industry.
Did you know that what is it? It's the oh god, it's there's a kookaburra down in South America is considered fish, and I think beaver is too. Because
that is one furry fish.
Right? Because they are primarily aquatic, they are classified as fish. This was done specifically in South America because that was a primary source of protein. So they're like, look, we don't really do fish, but we still need protein, especially during Lent. So can you classify this creature as a fish? It's primarily aquatic, so... And they got okay from the church. They're like, okay, cool.
I can't really talk. I'm a pescatarian, but I'll admit my cheat food is gator.
Yeah. I think it's more funny. If I ever find somebody who's like, in that, oh, well, I have to take this religion, I have to observe this day where I can't eat meat. If I see them eating honey, I'm just going to go off. Because honey is classified as raw meat.
It's hard for me to look at it that way. I'm no vegan, but I look at it the same way I would look at milk or eggs, I guess.
I don't know. It's just I always, it stunned me when I first found out that it was classified as raw meat, because it was like, how?
Right? Yeah.
But, it makes sense. It's because of the ease of which bacteria can grow on it, and, how easily it spoils, even though it doesn't.
Right? Yeah, because it's like, that's one of the big things. It's actually, honey is actually a natural antibiotic, though.
Yeah,
Well,
except unless you mean botulism.
And have you ever heard of Piper's gut? Okay, this is a tangent that was bound to happen, but Piper's gut is known to occur with people who play certain varieties of bagpipes. Their stomachs swell from a certain bacteria growing in them, and this bacteria is derived from the honey that is used to assemble certain sets of bagpipes. So yeah, honey will kill a lot of bacteria, but the bacteria it doesn't kill are going to thrive.
Okay. Looking it up here, so honey can actually can contain the bacteria that causes infant botulism. That's why any child, you're not supposed to give honey to any child under a year old.
That part I knew, but
yeah, it's kind of interesting because it's like, so yeah, it's like it kind of does, but it kind of doesn't, and it's like I don't know. Honey is one of those weird things.
Because it acts as an antihistamine, also.
It can, yeah. I mean, that's one of the things I've always heard as far as the reason for getting local honey, especially if you have allergies, is because it's made with the local flowers and stuff like that. It can actually help alleviate that.
But if honey is classified as raw meat, then does this mean we have to do the same for, say, yogurt and kefir? Because those are pretty damn probiotic.
Actually, yogurt is also something that I usually question things. Because when I hear people like, oh, I'm not ever going to eat a living thing, like, well, first of all, plants. Second of all, you're eating yogurt. That's just a colony of microbes right there.
Yeah.
I will not eat animals that aren't, like I say in the case of the gator, at least most of the time aquatic based. I'm going to go with bacteria ain't animals.
Yeah, that's the big thing. It's like, you're talking about, well, I won't eat a living thing. It's like, well, really what you mean is you won't eat a sentient thing. Something that we at least we recognize as being sentient.
I always went with things I find cute. I can find certain birds, most mammals, and a lot of other stuff on this category cute. Fish are slice them and dice them.
See, for me, it's like, I don't do well with eating younglings. That's just, I don't care how how tender the meat is and stuff like that. It's like, that's just, I don't know. It just seems wrong.
I once ate something I'm still not proud of myself for having eaten. I was in my early 20s. I was in Spain, and I was at a tapas bar in Barcelona. And one of the meals available, it's tapas, I guess, not whole meals. But because, I'm a kid, all right, relative kid compared to now, it was 20 years ago, I see this one thing, I think, I have to try this. Because I tell myself, oh, it's cultural, it's all this other stuff. It was a bowl of still basically alive baby eels.
Yeah, that's...
Now, on the one hand, in hindsight, oh, hey, they're still fish. But on the other hand, it's like, one, youngling, and two, still alive, never again. Did I suffer anything from that? No, not physically. But I look back years later and said, I ate something that could feel it. Bad, Andrew.
Yeah, that's a little.
That's always been my thing, was like, okay, I'll eat meats and, I don't have a problem with it, but not if it's still alive.
Yeah, not if it's still alive. I draw the things. I draw the line at basically at things that have the same consistency as snot.
Yeah, no.
So it's like,
oh, you'd hate monkfish.
Yep, they just, oysters, escargot, snails, stuff like that. It's like, nope, I
also tend to draw the line
at
at things that could easily poison me.
Yeah, that's a good rule to have.
What's this something? This is hypocritical of me, I guess, given my eel incident, but years later I was made aware of the trend in Korea of eating live squid. Or, they're not true squid, they're cuttlefish, but still a cephalopod. And there was an incident where a man is eating one of these, and it basically tries to strangle him on its way down. I'm like, you know what? I normally eat squid, dead squid, of course, now. But, you go, cuttlefish.
Yeah, right?
I
Yeah.
also will not eat anything that could be considered insectoid. So when someone's like, we're gonna eat scorpions, I'm like, you have fucking fun with that.
I'll admit, I ate cockroach and I've had tarantula. Again, long before I gave them up, but on some level, I can't view them as much different than, say, crab, lobster, shrimp.
Yeah. I've often said that if I were on a desert island and there wasn't like indigenous wildlife and I had to subsist on fish and grubs, I'd just die.
And I sometimes think it's a pity I've given up insects technically, because I didn't want to start splitting hairs after the fact, because they're a great source of protein. And to be fair, I did enjoy eating tarantula.
See, your comment about crabs and stuff like that just reminds me of this. Reminds me of a time at one of the Chinese buffets here in town.
Which one was it?
I don't remember the name. Most of the names like blur together for me.
I hear buffet in this town. I think the one on Prospect, but yeah.
But yeah, there was a couple of middle-aged a middle-aged couple that just, oh my goodness, they went to the buffet. They came back with 2 plates filled, just absolutely filled with crab legs. Then they go back up and they get they get 2 soup bowls and fill it with the melted butter. It's like, holy shit, how are you it's like, how have you people not had massive heart attacks yet? Dear God.
Maybe they have.
You would think you would think something like that would be like, nope, that should be the lesson. That should be the lesson of, you do not need this. This is not good for you. But just, it was just like, I'm staring at that. I'm like, how, why? Just, I don't care how much you like something. It's like, when you're indulging that much, I don't see how you can do that.
I mean, the crab legs themselves are healthy. Mostly. They're just protein for the most part. No real fat, no real carbs. The butter, on the other hand, well, I can't really talk. You've seen what's in my Alfredo sauce. So I guess you'd need to know. If it's just the two of them eating it, if they don't do it that often. But the thing about both the butter and the crab is the huge amount of cholesterol.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, between the two, the crab's going to be worse than the butter on that. People don't tend to know that, and this is a sore spot for me, but my favorite, seafood, squid, shrimp, yeah, real high cholesterol.
Wow.
Very low fat, but very high cholesterol.
Now, which type of cholesterol is it the good or the bad type?
I believe the bad.
Okay.
Though, to be fair, I don't really make much of a distinction between the two. Like, I get the egg is the good kind, but I'm like, I probably still shouldn't overdo it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's... Eggs are kind of one of the weird things, because if I remember right, the egg white is really high in the good cholesterol.
The yolk has the fat and the cholesterol. The white just should be the protein and nothing else.
Okay, but yeah, it's just. Well, I know they usually say, the egg whites is usually when they say, when is usually what they recommend when you have high cholesterol, or at least bad cholesterol. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in eggs. It's like, I think they usually say like 2 eggs a day is about all you should have.
I mean, I've easily broken that rule when I do eat eggs, but I don't really eat that many eggs overall. But yeah. Now, if you don't, egg beaters, which are made from eggs, are mostly made from the egg white, hence their lack of cholesterol completely.
Okay.
And of course, it's cholesterol and fat are not necessarily hand in hand, as most veggies aren't going to have a lot. That's why when you get stuff like, say, Beyond or Impossible meat, yeah, you're dealing with the higher sodium, but there's absolutely no cholesterol in the product.
Yeah.
Hello, gamers.
Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Good grief, we just get everybody tonight.
We just need Sin.
I think Sin is still trying to get acclimated to life in Missouri.
Yeah, that makes sense. You guys can continue talking. You don't have to stop just because I came.
Oh no, we were winding down about eggs.
Oh, okay.
Started, which had come from crustaceans, which had come from, oh boy.
Yes, it's been a long, winding road.
Yes.
Fair enough.
As is pretty much usual.
I mean, I'm just glad I don't bring any of the topics that I normally think of to the show, because that would open up all sorts of doors.
Yeah.
Like, was it yesterday? I just suddenly, this little voice in my head was like, nihilistic thoughts. It's like, is it just that all life is is all life parasitic, and symbiosis is really just a lie that is, we perpetuate so that we feel better about being parasites?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And my friend was like, what do you mean? I was like, well, technically, if you think of it, every form of life that internally grows its own offspring is actually just feeding a parasite, and we're just perpetuating that.
Yeah?
It's not wrong.
I mean, think of all the calcium you lose if you're a woman who's pregnant.
Yeah. I mean, the whole purpose of an umbilical cord is to provide nutrients to the life form that is growing inside, except, it's not a symbiotic relationship because you're not actually getting anything back from that life form.
True. But at
This is the kind of shit that I think about when I'm too bored.
But at the same time, it's, you personally aren't getting anything back, but the species is getting something through continuation of another generation.
True, but can that really be considered symbiosis?
Symbiosis. Well, I mean, it's kind of the question of what's good for the species versus good for the person. So the question is where does the symbiosis end? Does it end with the individual, or does it end with a species working together as a whole to continue to exist? So you are providing something to this unborn child, or even young member of the species. You are giving something to them from yourself in order to, so you are providing something to another member, another entity of the species, so that the species can continue as a whole. It's kind of like, I guess I would compare it to something like bees, where it's less of an individual, it's less of a question of an individual and more of a question of what's good for the hive.
And it goes oddly silent.
I mean, I'm not really disagreeing.
It is an interesting question. It's again, it's one of those things where, life is a little bit more complicated than just the me. There's the me, and then there's the
me, the we.
Yes. So so Gamers Grotto, is your apartment complex pest free now?
No, well, so this entire building is infested, unfortunately. So, I mean, it is for the time being my apartment, but that's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
When they're in a whole freaking apartment, I mean, there's nothing I can. They're in the entire building. Like, there's not much I can do.
Yeah.
But
makes sense.
Yeah, it sucks. It's unfortunate. It's like some of the tenants they have in here are really dirty. So.
Yeah, it's
city living.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. So I did you guys already discuss the topic for tonight, or?
Yeah, we stayed on that for all of 30 seconds.
We stayed on it for a while, actually.
30 seconds sounds better than usual.
We actually, I mean, we kind of, we stuck on it for a little while and kind of were discussing different aspects of things, of different cultures and stuff, as far as how they classify what somebody is, and as far as when if they were born in the Klingon Empire, are they Klingon? It's like yes, but no, but kind of, and
which I just got corrected on. The same ex that I was talking about was like, wait a minute, you said Worf. I was like, yeah. She's like, Worf wasn't half human. He was full-blooded Klingon. I was like, yes, you're correct. I was misremembering.
Yeah, it was.
No, he was half. Worf was half human.
Alex
What?
was half
No.
human.
Oh,
His
no,
son
right,
Alex
right,
was
right.
half
Alex was 1/4 human, 3/4 Klingon.
Yeah, and
Yeah, okay,
Worf was
yeah.
just raised by adoptive human parents.
Yeah, and that's why in the first or second season he had to go through the puberty ritual of the pain sticks.
I always hated Brian Bonzal as Alexander Roshenko. Oh my god, he was such an annoying character. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I found him really annoying. That's why I'm thankful. Him and Wesley are like the two most annoying characters on the Next Generation.
I mean, Wesley was I don't know.
He was annoying.
He was a creator's pet. That's what he was.
Yeah.
Well, Gene Roddenberry said that he based the character of Wesley after him as a child, or as a teenager rather. So I get the concept of the character. I just found him a nuisance. That's all. I mean, he was just like a nuisance on the show.
What for the first season or two, absolutely. I think once he started growing, once they finally found a direction to go with the character, I think that I think it got a.
But
he got
not really, because as soon as there was a direction to go with the character, then he just either took off to Starfleet or he got taken away by the time traveler guy. Like, I mean, he didn't even stick through the series. He just like was there, and then as soon as his character became interesting, they wrote him off the show.
Well, how? Well, yeah, you had to though.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't have somebody who can travel through who can travel through space, travel through time, travel through through realities. Even maybe we don't know the extent of being a traveler, but you can't have somebody like that.
Absolutely,
in
but
a
I don't think that story was ever intended to happen. I think they just had enough of Wesley in general, and that was how they wrote him off the show.
No,
they were just like,
they introduced. Didn't they introduce the Traveler in the first season?
I don't recall.
No, I don't remember.
I
do know that the later episode where he comes back and he's like, Wesley, come with me, and then Wesley just took off with him. I'm just like,
well, yeah, but that's my point though. Is in that first episode where the Traveler's first introduced, that was when we learned that yes, Wesley is a Traveler because he has to help out, and he starts facing just like the Traveler did, even though nobody knew what the hell was going on. It was hinted really on that in that first episode with the Traveler that yes, this was Wesley's destiny.
I guess.
I mean, I don't know. I always found like when Star Trek started getting metaphysical like that, it just got really confusing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of introducing different ideas, but not. There's not much to go. There's.
Yeah.
You can't focus too much on that specific thing. So, yeah, you kind of have this issue of.
You have the issue of.
You introduce something, but you can't really do much with it. It's just kind of a general idea, and it's like that's never going to be very fulfilling because you're just it's like saying, oh, that would be like if you introduce the idea of the Q and they were never mentioned one time and they were never mentioned again. or you know, they saw the Borg, they met with the Borg, and then the Borg were never introduced again. It's like you have this really interesting concept, this really interesting thing, and then we don't do anything with it. It's like, why? Why introduce it if you're not actually going to do anything with it?
Yeah, and then there was all like the little abilities and things that they would give people, like Guinan with the, oh, well, her species can detect changes in reality. But why? Well, we don't know. They just can.
Yeah.
And they always, from that defensive stance she would take up whenever Q would show up in 10 forward, I always wondered, hey, can she actually hurt him?
Yeah, and that's what I always wondered too, because they're like, she starts threatening Q, and like he seems to actually take it seriously. And I was like, wait, so her species knows the Q, that they've dealt with them, and Q's taking a threat seriously from Guinan, who apparently is so in touch with the fabric of reality. She knows when there's been alterations. Like, she doesn't know what they are, but she knows that it's been altered. Like, are they gonna play into that? Is her species somehow like intermingled with the Q? Are they the same thing? And they're just like, nah.
I think one of the worst characters for the next generation was Barkley. I'm glad that he wasn't on for. I love him as an actor. Okay, he's Dwight Schultz is an amazing actor and voice actor. Surprisingly, he's probably in most of the video games you've played, because he's done tons of video game voiceovers. He's an amazing man. But him as Barkley, I fucking hated Barkley. Like, one of the most annoying characters in the franchise.
Yeah,
He got less annoying over time. When's the last time we saw him? Star Trek First Contact?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. I do know that like he was in like one of the Star Trek first-person shooter games, like Elite Force 2, I think it was. And it's so funny because you finally get on board. So the first game was on Voyager, the second game is on the Enterprise E. And you finally get on Picard's Enterprise E, and then suddenly Barclay's on it, and he's giving like a tour of engineering and everything, and it's just like, oh god, you just know this is gonna go wrong. He's gonna start a fucking warp core breach or something.
Yeah, it's one of those. I guess it's for me. It was always kind of, he never seemed to fit in, mostly because it was, here is this insecure person who is so focused, who focuses more on a make-believe world, that it is taking more importance than the real world. It's like, how the hell is that person on the flagship of the fucking Federation?
I mean, to be fair, have you seen the fucking crew of the Enterprise?
I mean, at least most of them are competent, and like, you know, they can focus on their job.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the problem with
Unlike,
Barkley.
say, you know, Wesley.
I think the best spot
Wesley
for Barkley
was just a kid. Wesley was never part of the crew originally. He was just the doctor's son.
But that's what made it more egregious for me, is that Wesley grew up on the Enterprise, and he was still a pretentious little shit, but he watched the crew, he participated in a few things, then they sent him off to Starfleet, he comes back, and he still acts like a dick!
Yeah.
He's like, I know what my duty is. My duty is to do this. I'm like, no, your duty is to shut the fuck up and do what your captain tells you to do.
I mean, have you seen Will Wheaton? They're
yes,
pretty damn close. I mean, there's no acting there. Like, let's be honest.
Now, to be fair, we have to say that is who Will Wheaton was. He has grown a lot as a person.
He has.
I've enjoyed
really
Tabletop with Will Wheaton.
He is very good at his role in Tabletop.
I mean, and also as far as Wesley kind of being like, well, no, I know what needs to happen, and it's not necessarily following the captain's orders. Again, he grew up on the he was kind of brought into the Starfleet life on the Enterprise, where 9 times out of 10, if somebody had a better idea, they went and did it whether the captain told him to or not.
I'm just reminded of that one episode where where they're being forced to play this stupid game where you have to get these little. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, the little
VR
discs
game,
and
yes.
Oh my god, that episode was so freaking weird.
yeah, that one was.
I think my favorite part of Next Generation is that people started actually questioning, like, wait, so are the Enterprise's adventures like standard fare for Starfleet? Or did people just read Kirk's reports and was like, nope, straight to the trash bin?
It's got brought up in the novel Q Squared, which, of course, being a Star Trek novel, it's automatically not canon. But an admiral visits and says, no, seriously, how do you keep having these adventures before breakfast?
Yeah, and like, that was what I loved about the post. They're like, so wait, is this like is it just the Enterprise that does this, or is it just that Starfleet as a whole runs into like weird shit, and the Enterprise just happens to be the one that we're focusing on? So like, you get at some admiral, and like, hey, we just got this call that there's this new species that can warp reality and bend spoons with their brains, and we need to look into it. And they're like, no, we got like 14 black holes. We've got the Borg. We've got this asshole over here shapeshifting into the Admiral trying to just send Kirk.
That's kind of why I liked the Orville, is because they kind of bring those kind of things up. And I mean, they do stupid stuff too, like trying to buy back their captain with episodes of Jersey Shore. But I mean, it was an interesting show, to say the least. But
I mean, I guess I kind of understand. I kind of understand, at least with the Next Generation, why the Enterprise was kind of like the center point, because the Enterprise was the first one to go beyond where humans have been before. That was the whole point of the first episode, was they were starting to go beyond their normal bounds and explore out into the unknown. And Q was like, "You're not ready for this. I can't let you out there until you prove to me you can handle it, and I'll let you go out there. Otherwise, no, you're not going anywhere." And then it was like, in that first episode, it was like, okay, we are going out further than we have gone before. So it is kind of, they are pushing the bounds. They are exploring beyond what they consider known space.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when they go back to like an established starbase or something like that, and it's like, oh hey, good thing you showed up, because everything's going to shit. It's like, those are the stories where it's like, wait, why? What is this normal? Or
somebody pointed out, they were like, one of the episodes, people were counting as a continuity error. They're like, one of these episodes, they said that they'd never heard of this thing before, but it happened in the original series. And then Riker comes up, and he's like, "Oh, I've heard of this." He's like, "But you just said nobody had heard of it." So I was like, "Yes, but." They're like, that's Riker's entire thing. Riker is exactly the type of asshole who would just like go through the trash reports and just be like, learn everything.
Yeah, I can't remember what episode it was called, but it's the one where basically like basically like an intoxicating virus.
Yeah,
that
passed
was
by touch.
That was the second episode. That was right after Encounter at Farpoint.
Yeah, and it was one of those things. Well, I mean, if I remember right, in the original one, it was because they were near some sort of astrological event that is very uncommon, and that was what caused it.
Yeah.
And it was
I think their first example was they had the hole in space, and they had Kirk with like, it's like a hole in space.
Well,
and they had Picard with there's a hole in space. Has this ever been seen before? And like, no. And we're like, yes.
Well, hole in space. That's very vague. But like with the second episode though, it's like, with that intoxicating virus type thing, it wasn't something that the Enterprise D was not there at the event. It was they ran into another ship that had been at this special event. So they didn't have a direct connection. They didn't know what caused it on that original ship. And one of the crew brought it back after touching one of the corpses. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense that they wouldn't immediately look back at the original Enterprise, the original series, as far as that goes, because it's like, well, the symptoms are kind of there, but we don't know the cause. So, and if I remember right, it actually came down to finding somebody frozen to death in a shower. That was what they looked up, and that was the one scene that was the one thing that was a perfect one-to-one comparison between the two episodes, and that was what they were like, oh wait, so this actually has happened before. Okay, so this is how we found out, this is how we got the virus, so let's look up this one specific incident, and it just happens to be very, very rare, so they go back to the original Enterprise's records, and they're like, oh, okay, so this has happened before.
I remember they said, and they found the cure just in time, too. But then they give it to Geordi, and it doesn't work, and that's their new thing is, oh, look, it's mutated since then.
Yeah.
Now, Gamer Scotty, you were saying?
Oh, I just found it. Okay, my favorite episodes of Next Generation were, so I can't remember what season it was, but there was a writer's strike at Paramount. And so they hired, they didn't have their regular writers, so they hired mystery and horror writers. And that's when the series started to get slightly darker, and they had that episode where Riker thought he was in a mental institution and all that. I'm sure you guys remember that episode and everything.
Yeah.
Is that the one where they... Oh,
Frame of Mind. The name of the episode was called Frame of Mind. I believe it was season 6 or it might have been a season 7 episode. But it was the one where he was acting in a play, and then suddenly the play became reality, and he's in a mental institution, and he doesn't know how he got there and all that kind of stuff. But that's when the series changed writers, and they started hiring like mystery and horror writers, and that's one of the episodes that they had. And then there was another one where there was like ghosts on the ship or something like that. I can't remember. I know that there was like one scene where Crusher is in like this morgue, and then suddenly all the people in the morgue who are laying flat dead on a table just get up.
Oh, the one where none of them can have REM sleep.
I think so.
Yeah. Yes.
Because she says, she closes her eyes, says, go away, and when she opens them, the corpses have all sat back down, and that's when she goes, something is robbing us of our ability to go into REM sleep cycles. Can you remember the last time you dreamed? Because I can't.
Right, and yeah, so they were, so it was kind of, they were hallucinating because they weren't getting that proper restful sleep. Makes
Just
sense.
like you do when you sleep deprive yourself.
Yeah.
I speak from experience.
I can't say that I've ever been in a morgue while sleep deprived, but yeah, okay.
I've had the...
I should hope not.
I've had the misfortune of raiding in World of Warcraft while sleep deprived, and it's less hallucination and more the dumbest ideas suddenly make perfect sense.
Oh yes.
I'm aware that that's par for the course for us nerds to some extent, but I meant that I didn't think two people should date because I thought one of them was a Super Nintendo and the other was a Genesis. That kind of logic was going through my head because I was so sleep deprived.
But that made perfect sense.
Can't ever be onto us.
They're incompatible. They have nothing in common.
And blast processing is a fraud!
Actually, I think it's funny how much the gaming community actually impacts everyday life, and nobody wants to admit it. Like the fact that they used, what was it, the Tainted Blood incident and Leroy Jenkins as models for Corona, and nobody fucking listened.
Yeah, that was. Well, yeah, it was
Terrifying.
The blood curse one was, they were even looking at that before COVID hit, and they're just like,
Yeah,
We
it
should
was.
really be
They were just using it for models for pandemics.
yeah, it's like, oh, no, you can't learn anything from a computer game. And it's like, no, we really can.
So apparently, the actual what was it? The actual resistance to it was the researchers were like, no, yeah, we want to do this because we want to see how a pandemic could start and like do projections on spread and like what would be the most likely cause of it and all this. Is like the naysayers was like, no, that's just, that's how gamers act, that's not how you would act in a real situation. And then we found out, no, that's pretty much exactly how you act. Someone says, hey, don't do this, or if you have to do this, make sure that you do this, and this, and we're just like, nope.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that they usually wind up having, that they push against that type of thing is like, well, it's a computer game. You have set parameters that aren't necessarily rules in the real world and stuff like that. And it's like that and the fact that I can't help but wonder how many of the people on the funding board are like, yeah, you're not really trying to research anything. You just want to get paid to play video games. And no.
Yeah. I mean, I just love the fact that everyone calls me pessimistic from my point of view, but you know it very well. Because everyone's like, oh, well, you can't say that people will do this or people will do this. You have to have faith in people. They'll do the right thing. I'm like, nope, people are idiots.
Oh, yeah.
If I have a situation where there's like, okay, so the logical and, positive thing to do would be this, and surely nobody would ever do this. It was like, no, yeah, they're going to do that second choice every time.
Oh, yeah. It's like, nobody would be this. Anytime you stop and say nobody would be this stupid, it's like you have just guaranteed that that's going to be one of the first problems that you run into.
And 90% of the time, the person saying nobody would ever be that dumb, cruel, vicious, whatever, I'm like, you're the one doing it.
See,
like, do you need a mirror?
I haven't had a whole lot of experiences as far as, somebody saying, well, actually doing the thing that they're warning of. It's just the severe underestimation of people's either stupidity or cruelty.
Yeah. I was like, why are you so jaded? Well, let me give you a hint. If I'm jaded, and most of my responses to situations are, these people are going to do this, and then you immediately look at me like, people wouldn't be that dumb. You've just answered your own question.
Yeah. It's, yeah,
There's
there's
3 words I live by: habits, patterns, people.
I don't know. For me, it's just the fact that, yeah, there's so many times people like to think the best of everything, but it's like that you cannot discount somebody doing something mean or stupid. That's just,
Yeah.
all too often I've seen people just discount oh, well, nobody would be that stupid. Nobody would do something like that. It'll be fine. It's like it's when they just absolutely just discount it as impossible. It's like, and it'll happen in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Exactly. Or what's the other favorite one is, nobody would be this stupid. Why do we have warning labels for? It was like, well, if they have a warning label for it, it's because somebody did it.
Yeah.
Please do not put genitalia in path of lawnmower.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always loved the George Carlin line. If you want to realize how stupid people can be, think about how stupid the average person is, and realize that half of them are stupider than that.
Yep.
Alright, I need to run to the bathroom real quick, so I'm going to mute my mic and just have the music player let you guys talk. So,
Cool. We'll find something to talk about, I'm sure.
So I've been running that club, or putting together that club over in FF14.
Yeah.
And it's basically an amalgamation of Tampa's castle and Chicago's exit.
Huh.
And it looks wonderfully rusty and run down with dim lights. And the whole place is a walking tetanus trap. I love it.
It sounds like my kind of club, yeah. I let my subscription expire, because I'm not going to continue paying if I don't have the way to. But also just because I got to that point, I finally got to Ishgard, and then everything just became a grind again. I was like, nah.
That's fair. I mean, I'm still enjoying the game, but I'm aware it's not for everyone.
It's not so much the game, it's just finding ways to, like, ignore the fact that you're on a grind. Because it's like I was saying about Warframe, there's only so many times you can do the same type of mission with the with repeating maps and repeating cells and repeating objectives until you realize that you're not actually doing anything.
I still enjoy it.
Yeah.
Then again, I also play WoW still, so take that as you will.
Well, I mean, I'm saying that, like, that you can only do the same thing so many times over and over and over before it gets monotonous, as I'm playing Borderlands.
I'm trying to think. But yeah, I think here's how it's just been going in FF for the last few years, since I finally caught up to endgame during Heaven's Word, so I was able to play new content when Stormblood came out. Who's calling me now? Yeah, I will have to get back to them. But I have literally forgotten what I was about to say.
You got to in-game content during Heaven's Word. You were able to do more things during Stormblood.
Yes, and what I was getting at was, it basically became every so often a new part of the story drops. You complete that part of the story, and there wasn't much grinding left by that point.
Yeah.
So it's the rest of the game has just become a social hub. It's honestly, during the pandemic, it's been my bar because my goth club literally physically collapsed here in town.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, that club had already been closed and was. I don't know if they were they even doing anything with it at that point.
No, it had been closed effectively since, I want to say 2015. That was at least when the last Goth Night was.
Yeah, and if I remember, yeah, it was like it closed shortly after that, because it was just like, it was a very sudden thing.
Yeah, I mean, that happened, and then there was the property buyout, and then the tussle over that, the arson attempt, which everyone said, oh, accidental electrical fire. God, come on, we all know better. Then there were renovations going on a few months before the collapse. And then the collapse. And I look at the collapse and it's like, weren't they working on the exact area?
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's a lot of stuff that's hard to believe here, and it's like, this was for the insurance.
Yeah, whether they just hired crappy people on purpose and, cut rate people, or they, hired friends that would be like, oh yeah, it's just gonna accidentally, yeah.
Well, even then, behind the scenes, there was a bit of a struggle. Okay, so there was a group of investors who bought it, but they had one guy at the lead who, he gets it, and he wants to keep it as a club. And this is as of 2017, 2 years after everything we knew was basically gone. Once that happens, that's after that, the fire breaks out, and most people think it's one of the investors putting their foot down with their front guy, saying, no, we are going to bulldoze this and sell it to the city as a parking lot. Shut up, don't get in the way.
Well, with some of the shit that's happened around town, this
becomes
surprised.
believable. But everything I'm saying is hearsay, so take it with a grain of salt. After that, the rumor just spread around about, well, now the front guy wants out, and he's trying to unload the place on someone else. I don't know where that went, if it ever went anywhere. And then we didn't really hear much until the collapse. I have a shard of the building. It went out a ways. Like, I was nowhere near the building to find the shard.
Yeah, I remember hearing about it, and it was just kind of like, yeah, there were a lot of, there was a lot of suspicious shit going on at the time.
There absolutely was, and to be honest, if it wasn't falling apart before those renovations, why the hell was it falling apart after?
Yeah, well, I think it would not surprise me if that was the reason it was suddenly closed and they were trying to sell it. Was because it was simply because the building was starting to fall apart, and they realized that. And I think of it like this: if you realize that your building is falling apart and it's going to cost you more to fix it than you make in, say, a year, why fix it? Why just close it, tear it down, maybe try and sell it if you can get somebody who will buy it with no inspection.
That's the kicker there.
Yeah, I mean, your sale price is going to go way down, but it is possible to sell a building without having an inspection done.
Very possible.
Well,
especially in this strange town of ours.
I've actually had to help a friend basically do that with a house that was just, it was the investor was aware that there may be problems. The buyer was aware that there may be problems, and they got a fraction of the price for the house. But it was just, okay, you're no inspection, you're taking all liability. It's like, well, then you're going to give me a fraction of the price of what the building's actually worth. Of course, it was apparently they wound up selling it to a local landlord who had like tons of rental properties around. So 9 will get you 10. It was nothing was ever done about the problems.
I speak as a former landlord myself. It's very rare to see anyone take care of their problems sometimes.
Yeah. I mean,
I can tell you that I usually fix problems, but if the tenant caused it, I would be much less likely to.
well, I mean problems that pre-existing problems within the building. Like I had one of the
Oh yeah, you gotta take care of those.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of these outfits, especially the people that the companies that own multiple rental places, don't. Like I had one duplex that I rented for about a year. Found out on the first cold night that the heater does not work. The furnace does not work. Had their maintenance person come in, take a look at it. Well, there was apparently like a regulator problem or something that just they couldn't get a part for, so they did nothing. They realistically they should have replaced the furnace, but they did nothing.
If it's unlivable, they are liable and need to put you up in a place of temporary accommodations.
Yeah, well,
And that is something I've had a landlord do. That's something I've had to do, and I've obviously pissed some people off out there by just being a landlord, but damn.
well, yeah, you were never just doing it for your primary income and like owning, buying up basically cheap houses and slapping a fresh coat of paint or paneling on it and saying, okay, there it is.
No, nothing like that. And my rent was dirt cheap. I mean, literally, I was only charging people $400 a month, utilities included.
Jesus.
Now, it got to be a strange, dramatic thing, and in the wake of the, gods, I can't think of the right word, the eviction moratorium, I lost some friends over the issue.
Yeah, that was kind of that was a whole big fuck up. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, it
was a hammer used where a scalpel was needed.
Yeah, it's like, look, if people can't go to work, yeah, they're not going to have money to pay the rent. But just saying, okay, well, you can't evict them for not paying rent. What are people going to do when all of a sudden their landlord's like, oh, hey, we can evict you for not paying rent. Now, you owe us 12 months worth of rent.
A lot of people have... I am planning on going the legal route, but I have to save up for the proper lawyer fees first, which of course get included in my suit. And it's against, it was originally against 2 people. Turned out they had 5 in the house, blah, blah, blah. Names are taken, legal records are taken, etc.
Jeez, yeah.
It was a lot of people who just didn't think ahead, and yeah, we were talking before about how people say, oh, people wouldn't do anything that stupid and selfish. I can tell you from experience, people can be very short-sighted.
Yeah. So, anybody got anything else specific that they want to talk about this week?
I don't think specific, but hey, I'm just enjoying bouncing around topics.
Well, I didn't know if Gamers Grotto had something as far as like news-wise, gaming news-wise, or anything like that.
Maybe you know something about Bloodlines Part 2. Okay, I get it. That's wishful thinking on my part.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any news stuff that if there's.
I don't know. Everything around here has been too focused on the fact that, oh, hey, we're the state where that big Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial is being held.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you should be even more sorry because it's in Fairfax, which is like an hour away from me.
Oh, jeez.
So it's like, you know what? Technically, I know exactly where they are. On the other hand, nope.
Yeah. I mean,
I had to stop and laugh because the day I had to go to court for that missing jury duty, they're just like, oh yeah, by the way, we're also selecting a grand jury, and then suddenly they're like, and then we're going to start live streaming the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. I was like, damn it. If it weren't for the fact that I know that jury is not serving on that trial, that would be the jury duty I'd want. That whole trial is just a fiasco right now. It's hilarious seeing some of the shit that's coming out of it.
right?
Did you see that? It was a video that dropped a couple weeks ago, but apparently her lawyer objected to his own question.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, shit, man.
I saw an explanation of that one, and basically what he was meaning to do was to have it stricken from the record. That was the proper terminology that he was supposed to use, but no, it was just objection.
Yeah, it was like, this is what happens when you train your lawyers to only say objection hearsay.
Yeah.
And then all I could think of was I was instantly reminded of that scene in Liar Liar where he's just like, I object. He's like, but you asked the question.
Yeah, or yeah.
He's
Objection.
badgering the witness. It's his witness.
Objection. Why are you objecting? It'll hurt my case?
Yeah, it's devastating to my case.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, and
That's one thing in Hollywood that I always wish I could see in real life is just a lawyer like, you know what? I've just realized that my client is a horrible person. I would like to withdraw from this case now.
so in going back to a topic that I started with last week, I still think my general idea of the MCU shows is having seen the ending of the first season of Moon Knight. I still think that they're basically walking us through the 7 stages of grieving, because Moon Knight.
I still need to watch this.
Moon Knight very much ended with kind of the idea of reconstruction, of taking the broken pieces of a life and building something new from it.
I had the chance to see the movie today, but I didn't take it.
I've
Doctor Strange?
yeah.
Both Doctor Strange and Moon Knight. My friend was just like, hey, you want to go see a movie? I was like, what's out? And he's like, well, we got Moon Knight, Doctor Strange. Like, maybe, but the last 3 Marvel movies I've watched with you have been incredibly awkward, so
Well, yeah.
it's not.
Well, Moon Knight is just one of their one of their
Yeah.
streaming series, but yeah. I've heard that the new Doctor Strange movie is very divisive. It is very, people either loved it or hated it, and there's not many people in the middle ground.
I am so far behind on the MCU right now. I still have to watch Far From Home, okay? And let's not even get started with No Way Home.
I have yet to even watch Homecoming, but
I was about to say, I don't think I ever saw Homecoming either, so I actually don't know where I am.
I have not watched the MCU stuff all the way through. Like I God, I don't think I actually watched Civil War, Age of Ultron. Those were ones that I'm just kind of like, I got the broad strokes of it, and it's like, okay, yep, no problem. And from everything that I've seen, those weren't like major ones. It's like, yeah, they introduced Wanda Maximoff in Age of Ultron, and she was a major player in Civil War, but it's like, but there wasn't much development of the character. There wasn't, it was just kind of like, you really only need the broad strokes. You don't need an in-depth viewing of that to understand where they're going from here.
I think I agreed when I saw something earlier today where someone was like, I love all the MCU movies except of Age of Ultron. We do not speak of Age of Ultron.
See, I don't know. I mean, that's one of those... It's... I don't think... I mean, from everything that I've heard, I don't think it's necessarily a bad movie. It's... it's kind of... I've always heard that it's a decent movie, but it's nothing to write home about.
Yeah, well, it's not so much it's a bad movie, it's just what it does with some characters and plot lines is it's not heavy enough to actually impact you in any real way, but also it just confuses a lot of shit.
I'll see, the one reason I would watch Age of Ultron is solely for James Spader.
Yeah, James Spader was good in Age of Ultron. I'll give him that.
Yeah, his his voice. It's just like, yeah, that's his style is just, yeah, it's good. That's one of the reasons why I loved the Blacklist.
Yeah. And then, of course, it was a big thing when WandaVision pulled the Pietro coming back, was that they didn't use Age of Ultron Pietro. They used Days of Future Past and all that, and there's like, wait, how are we explaining that?
Yeah. I mean, they kind of hinted at the idea of, oh, hey, we, there are, at least with certain tools, you are able to access the multiverse and get an idea of other versions of a person.
Yeah, and that's when it happened, when they first did it. That's what everyone was guessing, like, wait, so are we introducing the multiverse now? Like, are we crossing it? Is this whatever's been going on that they're screwing with memories? What's going on here?
I kind of, it's the most frustrating part for me is trying to figure out how all of these different series work together, because there's a certain idea that that they are they're almost stacked on top of one another.
Yeah.
But I don't, so like, Loki opening up the destroying the sacred timeline enables crossover events and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like, I don't think that's what, I don't think that happened, during WandaVision. I think WandaVision was a special case where, I mean, number one, the sacred timeline wasn't just this one straight tube. It was more like a length of twine. It's several of them just very closely woven together so that they don't actually cross, they don't intersect. They are happening side by side, and that's why when Wanda got a hold of the Darkhold, she was able to cross over and get whispers and stuff from different realities, from different lines in the multiverse, but she wasn't actually able to cross between them because they were, the TVA at that time were still very much keeping any intersections separate.
And I need to go in this feud because I've got to get up early.
Very understandable. I think we'll probably go for a little bit longer.
It feels like we're just beginning to wind down.
Yeah.
Fatigue eventually sets in.
I'll
catch you all later.
All right, take it easy, Rascalin.
You too.
Now, I will say one thing that I did not like about what was said after Age of Ultron was the whole Captain America shifting the hammer and they'd be like, oh, hey, that shows that he is worthy. He just didn't want to, actually show that he was, that he could lift the hammer. I think it would have been a better choice if they had said, yes, he will. It's not that he is worthy, it's that he will be worthy. He is not worthy at that point because he had to go through the Civil War storyline, and basically he had to learn that sometimes you have to question the government.
Well, that's what they were saying they wanted to do anyways, or in the first place, was that it was supposed to be an indication that Steve could be worthy, but that he had doubts.
Yeah, it was. Well, I mean, I always question that because it's like it's supposed to show a worthiness of having the power of Thor, and the idea of Odin's idea of worthiness is somebody who could and would lead. Could and would rule over Asgard as king. Now,
yeah,
Steve Rogers would never do that. Kings aren't, the idea of a king is not in his style. He believes in democracy. He believes in the ideal the ideal United States. So he would never actually accept rulership of Asgard.
Yeah, he believes in freedom, which, he wouldn't see in ruling Asgard.
Yeah.
I mean, even when we finally see, as far as the MCU goes, even when we finally see Steve with Mjolnir, accessing all the powers and everything, he doesn't actually use half of the abilities that we see Thor do it. And that's just because, that's not how Steve thinks. That's not how he works.
Yeah.
I'm still here, by the way. I'm just listening.
Oh, that's understandable. I've done that a few times.
That and I'm testing out a game that I just picked up.
Uh-oh, which game?
It is a PS5 Spy Hunter clone, if you remember the old Spy Hunter game.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so they remade it. It's an indie game, but they remade it for PS5, and I've just been testing it out, and so far it's amazing.
Huh.
But yeah, so that's what I'm doing.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's Steve Rogers being worthy of Mjolnir was always kind of one of those. It's like he was, when in Age of Ultron, he was still the good, upstanding soldier that followed orders. But then after Civil War, it was like, look, we shouldn't have to, if somebody needs our help, we shouldn't be. We shouldn't have to go and ask somebody else for their permission to help these people. Which, ironically, actually makes him more worthy of Mjolnir than Thor at the time, because that was kind of why Mjolnir was taken away from Thor, was he just went off and did what his king forbade him to do, so... It's kind of, you have to, it's like, well, you have to really have a really good reason for it, and you have to do it for the benefit of everybody. And that's kind of the lesson I think that Steve Rogers learned in Civil War, was like, okay, so yeah, I disagree with the Sokovian Accords. I don't think we should have to ask permission. But at the same time, we have to have a really good reason to break the rules before we, before we break them. We have to actually stop and think about shit first. And then, of course, once he learns that lesson, the next chance he gets, yeah, he can totally use it.
I heard you saying earlier about Amber Heard's lawyer objecting to himself. That was funny. I thought I was watching a comedy when that happened.
Yeah, I don't think you can write a comedy that good.
It was.
I mean, it
just gets funnier and funnier with all the shit all the lies that she's saying and everything. And like today, they were like, the Johnny's lawyer was just like, he had like pages and pages of all of her lies, and he's like going through all of them, and the judge is just like twiddling her thumbs, waiting for him to go through all this. It was really funny. Like she has no chance in hell of anything. Her career's screwed now, and that's what you get for lying. I mean,
yeah. That's kind of one of those things. I wonder how many actors are kind of in the same position. It's like they've done some really, really bad shit in their life, and it's like,
oh, for sure.
How long before this comes out, and basically it's time to retire.
Yeah, I think Johnny will be okay. He probably lost his Pirates of the Caribbean movie like he claims, but whatever. I mean, I think he'll be fine. It's Amber Heard who's going to be screwed from this. I mean, nobody's going to want to work with her.
Look at it this way: as far as Johnny Depp is concerned, as long as Tim Burton is making movies, Johnny Depp will have a career.
You are so right. That's so true. Hasn't he been in like every single? He's pretty much been in almost every single.
Just about, yeah. Just about. I mean, there's a few early ones like Batman and Batman Returns that he wasn't in, but it's like, yeah. No, I mean, these days it's like, yeah, if there's something comes up, it's probably gonna have Johnny Depp in it somewhere.
Absolutely. No, he's.
I think depending on how things turn out for him, and how much of a following he has.
The thing is that there's no way anything she says is accurate, because like I remember even back before he was dating Amber, and I remember there was an article in Canada where he like literally visited the Toronto Sick Kids Hospital in his Jack Sparrow outfit when he was shooting some scenes up here for one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and he went and visited sick kids. Like, does that sound like somebody who abuses people? Like, come on. I mean, it's just all. I mean, he may have gotten drunk and hit her once, but I'm pretty sure she probably deserved it.
Yeah. That's kind of getting into some gray territory there, but yeah, I mean. Yeah. I don't know. It's difficult to. It's really difficult to look at a situation like that and say, okay, well, what's true, what's not, what's it's like.
Yeah. Oh, of course. And we won't know until the jury reaches its decision and the judge and everything.
Yeah.
But I do think that I think you'll find that she's the one who's guilty in all of this. I feel like she's probably telling a lot of tales, because a lot of the witnesses, like a lot of the witnesses have even said like that, you know, what are these stories like? I don't know. And then she's done stuff like written articles behind Johnny's back, and just, I don't know. It's pretty bad.
Remember the good old days when they just got divorced? Or the even better days where if they got tired of each other, they just poisoned each other and got it done with.
Poisoned each other. Jesus.
It's like, we don't need to drag this out in court. I'm just gonna put a little arsenic in your whiskey. We're good. Bye.
Yeah, that's funny. But yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the jury's one thing. The court of public opinion is going to be, yeah, that's going to be the one that really, I think, really makes a difference as far as, you know, who still has a job, who's able to get roles and stuff like that. Like if enough people back Johnny Depp, he'll still be able to get Pirates of the Caribbean back.
He doesn't want it back though. He said in court that he doesn't want it back.
Oh,
he said that when Disney was like, no, because of this, we're not going to have you in the movie. He's like, well, you know what? He said in court that even if they ask me to come back, I'm not going to now, because I mean, they burnt their bridges with me.
Yeah, that is a pretty good way to just make sure that your actor never comes back. It's like, oh, hey, so you're in trouble and there's not enough evidence to actually prove it was you, but we're dropping you from everything.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happened. And Johnny's just like, well, you know, that's fine. It's not like there's any other movies, like, you know what I mean? He's going to be in tons more movies, I'm sure, that are not Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And plus, he's his countersuing of Amber. He'd be getting more than what he'd make in another Pirates of the Caribbean movie, because I think he's suing her for like for 50,000 or for 50,000, 50. What was it? It was over $1 million. I know that. It was. I can't remember what it was, the exact amount. But he's suing her for a lot of money for defamation.
Personally, I think what's funny is that this big...
Whether she has that money or not is another story.
Yeah, no, the big point of contention in Amber's camp is, like, they keep going back to the night where she threw a bottle and, you know, sliced his finger. And, like, every time they talk to somebody about that, they're like, but you didn't know how he actually injured his finger, isn't that correct? And Judge is like, how many times do I have to fucking tell you to rephrase this question?
Yeah.
And then, of course, they'll be like, well, how did you hear that he injured his finger? And, like, the moment there's like, okay, well, I got a text, and they're like, no, that's hearsay. I'm like, well, then start phrasing the question so they can actually answer it.
Yeah.
I was like, if your question has the word "hear" in it, hearsay is going to be popped up, because you can't prove that that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. I mean, now there's a certain point where hearsay is where I as I understand it, hearsay gets a bit tricky, because, like, okay, if they brought somebody in who got a text message from Johnny Depp himself, that's not hearsay. That is somebody,
I would say
that is somebody telling you what happened to them. You're not hearing it's not somebody heard something and is saying it to you.
Yeah, well, I would say that, but the judge already upheld an objection where they were like, okay, so who'd you get a text from? And they're like, well, I got a text from Johnny. And then they're like, what'd the text say? And, like, right before he started saying what the text was, Amber's lawyer came in with hearsay, and they're like, oh yeah, okay, we'll allow it. I was like, but that was Johnny.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess it's because, nowadays text can be manipulated. You can just like make them say whatever you want to say. I don't know. I haven't been following close enough to actually care.
I suppose I could see that. It's mostly, it's kind of that idea of, well, you say that the text message was from Depp, but really all you can prove is that it was from his phone, who had his phone.
Yeah, exactly.
So I could see that being a little uncertain, because it's like, yeah, you don't know who the text actually came from.
And then you've got where they're trying to question his character, and they're like, are you claiming that, you've never had encounters, or isn't it true you've had problems in the past with drugs and alcohol? And Johnny's like, yeah, those are public record.
My favorite is so people are trying. Well, there's been a petition to get. I don't know what movie it was. I think it was Aquaman 2 or something. But Amber Heard is supposed to be in that movie, and there's a petition to get her out of that movie completely.
Yeah,
so that she doesn't even have a role in it. And so far, it's gained you should see all the people that signed it.
Yeah,
there's a good chance that she's not going to be in that movie now.
Well, from what I've heard, her role in that movie, her actual screen time comes up to like 10 minutes or something like that. So it's like, it's not that I mean, she has a very inconsequential part of the movie in general.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, it's not like it would be very difficult for them to reshoot it, to reshoot those scenes with another character.
Another actress.
Yeah, another character doing or saying whatever it is that her character
exactly
was part of. So I don't know. I mean, I'm this is one of the things that has me almost tempted to try out HBO Max. Is I've never actually seen the Aquaman movies.
Okay.
Movie. I've never actually seen it.
I've never seen them either.
It's
the only part I liked was his mother. Like, the one thing I hate about the entire movie is that they pull off this, or they don't pull it off, but they go for the angle that they've been going for with almost all the DC movies, it seems, where he doesn't want anything to do with his destiny. Like, he doesn't know who he is, he doesn't know his heritage, and then when he finds out, he's like, nah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that always that kind of irritates me with some of the Aquaman stuff is the orange and green outfit. And not that they're finally coming around to using the orange and green outfit, but it's what that outfit is supposed to symbolize. So in the comics, that orange and green outfit was a prisoner's uniform, and he kept that when he became, when he was recognized as, the heir to the throne of Atlantis. He kept that color scheme to remind everybody not to be judgmental, not to go with snap decisions and snap judgments and stuff like that. It was supposed to be, hey, you thought I was the bad guy. You put me in prison, and now I'm your king. Don't do this shit to somebody else. You never know the person you put in prison. If you don't listen to them, you never know who they're going to turn out to be. And I always thought that was a very poignant reason for him to keep that color scheme. And I don't think they're doing that, and it's just like that's just kind of like has gone by the wayside from what I've heard. And it's like that's kind of a shame, really.
I don't know. I'm just waiting to see what DC tries next.
Yeah,
Honestly, if they're gonna just keep doing our assholes or our heroes are complete assholes, just bring in Namor.
I was watching the I was iffy about it, but I was watching the Uncharted movie the other day, the new one with Tom Holland, and it wasn't actually that bad. I don't know if you guys ever played any of the Uncharted games or whatnot, but it was actually pretty faithful. But there's like one hilarious scene where so they dive out of a they dive out of a plane with some cargo, and they end up in some lake, and then they swim out of the lake, and they end up on a beach at a resort somewhere, and there's Nolan North sitting there on the beach on a lawn chair on the beach, and he's like, "Where'd you guys come from?" And then Tom Holland goes, "Oh, we fell out of a plane. We were being shot at. We fell out of a plane with some cargo, and we almost died, and we landed in the lake." And Nolan North goes, "Huh, that sounds familiar. That happened to me once." And Tom Holland's like, "Okay." It was such a funny scene. I was just like, "Okay, that's brilliantly done."
that's
just a nod to Nolan North's character in the game.
that reminds me of Third Rock from the Sun.
Oh, that show was amazing.
When the big giant head shows up and it's William Shatner, and he's talking.
Oh yeah.
When he's talking about the there was something on the wing, and John Lithgow's like, "It happened to me too," and it's such a beautiful scene that so many people didn't understand because they don't remember the original Twilight Zone episode where it was William Shatner, and then they redid it for the movie with John Lithgow.
Yeah.
So it's like, that little nod to that, it's just like, and it just went so far over most people's heads. It's like, oh, come on.
Yeah, I do remember the original with him, with Shatner. That's awesome. I haven't seen all of Third Rock, but so I haven't seen any of the parts where Shatner came in, unfortunately. But I do remember the show. I just didn't get too far into it.
Yeah, I mean, well, it ran for a pretty good long while, didn't it?
Oh yeah. Oh god, yeah. Yeah, it was a.
I mean, I think I think that basically on that show you can literally see Joseph Gordon-Levitt grow up.
Yep.
It's not too surprising. I mean, the show was highly successful, so I mean, it's not too surprising that it did so well and had so many seasons and whatnot.
I do remember hearing that
the entire cast had such chemistry.
Yeah, I do remember hearing that was one of them that just it was such a downer ending. Because if I remember right, basically what happens is the aliens go home and they wipe the memory of anybody who knew them. So here's the romantic lead for John Lithgow's character, and basically she gets her memory of him completely erased. And it's like, how so does she just lose how many of her years of her life, and she's trying to figure out why, wait, what year is it? What happened? It's like, and how many people did they miss? Ancillary characters that just, they knew that she was involved with this man called Harry Sullivan, and it's just, or not Harry Sullivan, I can't remember which Sullivan it was. Dick Sullivan.
Yes.
I had to remember the comment, oh, you're Tom, Dick, and Harry. But yeah, it was like, between that and how they ended Alf, those were two of the comedy science fiction series that just, oh my god, how brutal of an ending can you have?
Never mind that. Do you remember Jim Henson's Dinosaurs? How they ended up ending that series, or did you ever watch the end?
Yeah.
That was controversial. With made it so that the asteroid hits the Earth and kills the family. Like, okay.
I mean,
that's how you end this. I mean, it's accurate, but
yeah,
I mean...
that's at least that was accurate. With Alf, he was supposed to go home, and nope, he's captured by the military. And they made it very explicit throughout the series that if he was ever captured by the military, they would run tests on him and probably end up dissecting him.
Yep.
And it's like, and that's where they leave him. It's just in the hands of the military.
But that's where they left him in the series. But then there was a movie that came out around the same time, which continued where the series ended.
Yeah, and that's. I think they realize, and it's one of those things. I think at that point it's like, you do realize that you just basically told everybody, without a movie or anything like that. It's like, you do realize you just told him that Alf's dead.
Yes. And then I don't know if you guys knew he has his own talk show. It was in the it came out in like 2014 or 15, but he had a talk show.
I remember hearing about that. Yeah,
the Alf Show. You can find entire episodes on YouTube, but there was a hilarious episode where his first guest ever on the Alf talk show was Drew Carey. And Drew Carey comes out, and Alf is like, "Hey Drew, are you hungry?" He's like, "Here, have some diced up cat." It's like, oh my god. And Drew's like, "I'm good, thanks." And he's like, "Are you sure?" It was pretty funny.
That was one of those things that I don't know. I mean, it's like it sounds interesting, but it's like at the same time it's kind of like that was kind of the push from the guy who created Alf and was the voice and puppeteer of Alf. It was that dude was fucked up. Like seriously messed up.
What do you mean messed up?
Okay, so on the set of the show,
he treated all the actors like shit. I knew that.
Oh no, he treated them all like shit. They could not address him. They had to address the puppet. They were not allowed to call Alf a puppet.
I remember that. Yes, I remember that. And that was his reasoning behind that was because he was staying in character. I mean, like so many actors do that. Like I mean, look at Heath Ledger.
It went so far beyond that though. Like the reason why Alf got a talk show and Alf was doing commercials and all this stuff was because the character had to have a completely real life, according to the puppeteer. He had to. Okay. They were never allowed to mention that he was a puppet. You could get a puppet Alf that was a facsimile of this supposedly real life actor, that real life alien turned actor, but you were not allowed to call Alf a puppet at any time. That wasn't even just on the show. That was in marketing and stuff like that. Dude was fucking nuts. There's
the bloopers of so I have the entire series of Alf on DVD. I gotta say one thing, the bloopers are freaking insane. There's like one scene where like Kate is trying to console Alf, and she's like petting him.
Oh yeah.
And Alf literally goes, "Ooh, pet me lower, right by my crotch." And,
oh yeah.
And she's like, "What?"
Oh yeah, that the pretending to have Tourette's,
yeah.
That was just like, oh my, no, that was, yeah, dude's creepy. The dude is creepy and really messed up in the head.
I still found Alf funny though. I mean, you gotta admit, he was very comedic.
Yeah, the show was for what it was, and the target audience, it was good for what it was. Like I said, the person behind the character, eesh, that was just that was just creepy as hell. But yeah, I mean, it's again, it's one of those cases of, you find out the real nastiness behind somebody, and it's just kind of like, there's.
Well, the whole reason I found out about it was because there's I can't remember where I stumbled across it, but it was a website where they had with videos on it, where they had interviewed the cast more recently. Obviously not too recently, because a lot of them are dead now. But I mean, the actor who plays Willie is dead. But they interviewed them all, and they all said the same thing. Like, every single one of them said that, we enjoyed it. We had a lot of fans from it, and that's what kept us going. But if not for the fans, we would have left the show a long time ago, because he is a dick.
Yeah.
So, and that's when I found out that, that was because I didn't know. I thought they were all happy being on Alf and they all had fun, but apparently not.
Yeah, it's one of those, you never know what the deep dark secrets of some of these things, like Growing Pains.
Oh yeah, now the thing with Growing Pains was Kirk Cameron was thrusting religion upon everybody.
Yeah,
and it pissed everybody off.
Yeah, he was, even way back then, it was just, he was really trying to push his religious beliefs, which, in and of themselves are kind of out there.
Now, did you see, so there is a reunion show that came out, I don't know, it wasn't too long ago. There was a reunion show with the entire cast, and Kirk Cameron actually was on it, and he apologized to everybody. He said, I was dumb back then, and I was so full of myself and my own religious beliefs and everything, and I just want to apologize to you all. And they all hugged, and it was a really nice, touching reunion. And so I got to give him respect for that, because, he learned from his mistakes. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, there's, there's that, and then you look at things like Kirk Cameron Saves Christmas.
Yeah. He
didn't learn anything. He's still doing the exact same shit. It's just, it almost kind of feels like something that was said to garner goodwill and
could be
and make for good television.
Yep.
And it did
right.
it. It was.
Yeah. Now, did you know that Patrick Stewart was very racist to Michael Dorn and LeVar Burton on the set of The Next Generation? And he actually, there's a special feature on the Blu-ray box set that I have, and it's him apologizing to Michael Dorn and LeVar Burton for being racist to them on the set of The Next Generation.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah, he was. He said very racial slurs towards them and stuff like that off camera. Yeah. And they weren't they were not happy with him for the longest time.
Not surprising.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
But now the one show that I will say had the most positive cast off camera and everything was The Sopranos. And if you saw how, if you've seen they had a special funeral episode, not an episode, sorry, it was nothing to do with The Sopranos. It was James Gandolfini's funeral, where like it was like a documentary about his life and everything, and they had like the entire Sopranos cast at his funeral. They filmed it all, and you could see it in this documentary, and everybody was just in love with that man. Like, I mean, they all grew up with him, like the kids, right? I mean, that was their TV father. I mean, they were quite young when they started out in the first season of that show, and they ended it, and they were like in their late teens when the show ended. And so they really grew up with that family. And so James Gandolfini held a very, very special place in their hearts. And he's nothing like Tony Soprano at all. He's the complete opposite. He's a very nice guy.
Yeah.
It was really touching to see just how much everybody just loved each other on that show. Like all the cast were just they were like one big family that just loved and supported each other. And like the kids were saying that like James Gandolfini would not miss a single one of their birthday parties or birthdays. He'd literally come and visit their family and spend birthdays with these actors that were on the show. So he was really one of a kind.
Yeah, and that's one of those interesting things where you see somebody who takes on would take on certain roles and stuff like that, and generally played the hard ass and stuff like that, the hard ass nasty person. It's like, oh no, this person's really just like the sweetest guy ever.
Yeah. And that's a testament to his acting ability, though, right? I mean, that's when you know that you've got an amazing actor on your hands, is when they're able to have everyone convinced that they're just this badass person, when in reality they're the nicest person you'll ever meet.
Oh, wow, who was it? I'm trying to think of the Nick Offerman. Nick Offerman is another one that he's the bearded guy who on I think it's Parks and Recs. The manly man.
Ron Swanson.
Yes. The manly man.
Yeah.
And so many people are asking like, "Oh, well, how you're this big tough guy and stuff like that, and how and everything," and he's just, and they're asking about his home life and stuff like that, and then how did he get into acting. He's like, and about his family and stuff like that, and he's like, realize this, I'm the one who took music theater in my family. Yeah. And I turned out like this. It's like, what do you think the rest of my family is? How do you think the rest of the men in my family are? I'm the fruity one of my family. It's like people don't realize that it's like, yeah, he's he always plays these very manly type characters, but it's like, yeah, he's also got the music theater background and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, he's not just this big tough brute. Despite that, the fact that he's always typecast as that.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, when you make your own furniture from your own wood shop.
Yeah. He's kind of what other people who have, wood shops and in their garage and stuff like that want to be.
Now, slightly off topic here, but I also heard that the actor who played the Flash, he's done now. Apparently he's been arrested like 3 times.
Oh, Ezra Miller, yeah.
And then
well, now just to be politically correct, Ezra Miller is they. They
okay.
are
I
non-binary, gender fluid.
Well, that was the basis of at least 2 of their arrests.
Okay. See, I don't know much about the actor at all.
Yeah.
Actor, actress, whatever.
Well,
I don't know.
For the most part, actor is
okay.
Thespian.
Yeah. Well, actor back in I think around Shakespearean time, it was actor because an actress, once women were allowed on stage and stuff, actresses were prostitutes.
Yeah.
So it was generally viewed
Interesting.
as a negative term. So for the longest time, both male and female thespians were just referred to as actors.
Okay, I didn't know that, actually.
Yay, I'm
Interesting.
actually using stuff I learned in college.
Well, there you go. But yeah, so I never watched the Flash series, so I don't.
Oh no,
know
that's
much
no.
about-
He's the Flash in the movies. He's the Flash in the movies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can't remember Grant something.
I
Yeah.
don't remember who does it on the series.
I'm trying to remember. Grant Gustin. Grant Gustin is the CW Flash.
Okay.
Yeah. But
See, I
yeah,
thought
a couple of the arrests were that Ezra was already drinking heavily and then was verbally attacked, both misgendered and had jokes and insults and slurs thrown towards them for being non-binary, and they got kind of pissed off.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is I mean that's understandable. It's like
Yeah.
Yeah. But
What
you
is-
know,
what is
when you
kind of
get
funny?
pissed off and you're an average Joe and you beat the shit out of the guy, that's just assault. When you do it as a celebrity,
It's a slap on the wrist.
no, that's your career.
yeah.
Oh, well, that's
like,
dude.
yeah, because it's like you look, an average,
Well,
average
it
Joe
wouldn't have
would-
been it wouldn't have been his career if he just did it once, but he did it like 3 times. He like literally got out of jail and then he was arrested a week later again for the exact same thing. Or
Well,
they,
you
sorry.
know.
Yeah, it's. Yeah,
I'm
it's-
still adjusting to Elliot Page.
Me too, right? Oh man. Yeah, exactly. Because I'm so used to them when they were on Trailer Park Boys and as Ellen.
Well, Elliot's not as much of a. It's not so much that it was the announcement that they transitioned and that he's Elliot now. It's right after his transition. You know, he said he's identifying fully as male and everything like that, but then he's going to continue on Umbrella Academy playing Vanya as a straight female. I'm like, okay, that's going to be a bit of an adjustment.
Actually, I
Oh.
think they've changed that.
No, they did. That's what I
Have
heard.
they?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
The character
Okay, 'cause
is
I
the
haven't-
character's
The character
transition.
is yeah. What
Okay,
Ollamh
yeah,
is.
because the last I heard it was right after his transition, so I hadn't kept up with it.
Yeah. They also, interesting enough, they also went back and edited all the end credits for all of the previous episodes to Elliot Page.
Well, that was nice.
So yeah, they are fully supporting.
Now the only thing that will never probably change is the video game that they did when they were female, Beyond Two Souls, because that still lists them as Ellen Page.
Well, yeah, but that's something that isn't. I mean, a game like that is something that you have on your hard drive. It's not something that they can.
Yeah.
That's easy to change that as much as going into a file that only you have, that you stream out to other people and
they
change.
could easily
this.
they could easily patch it with a patch. They could easily just on console and stuff like that. That's how it's normally done.
But- Yeah,
Go ahead.
I understand that, but my point is that you can't guarantee that everybody is going to have that, is going to get that patch, and everybody's game is going to be updated to that. Whereas if there's, if you have all of the copies, you can change that and
That's okay. This is the difference between console and PC. On PC, you don't necessarily have to get the patch, right? But on console, when a patch is out, they don't let you go into the game unless you download and install the patch. That's how it works on console nowadays. So you have it's mandatory to get patches before you play a game. It'll lock you out of the game until you patch it.
Yeah, it's just like I said, it's one of those. Well, I mean, okay, here's an example. Somebody who doesn't want to do that or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
How many games can you play if you don't have internet? Let's say you don't have internet, you just can't play any games?
No, so if you don't have
if you can play that game without internet, somebody can disconnect their internet just specifically because
to not get the patch.
I get that patch.
That's true. That is
so
true.
You're not in complete control of everything. It's you have, whereas like I said with streaming content, well, for example, I've had to do it with my channel where some song was copyright was copyright claimed, and I've replaced the audio so that song is taken out.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have the sole access to the sole copy that people watch, I can make those changes.
Yes.
But if I distributed out that video to people and gave them their own copy, there's no guarantee that I can change that so that song isn't in it. That's the reason why I don't see, I don't think they'd ever change that in the game, simply because, like I said, they don't have the sole copy. They don't have
it wouldn't. The problem is if they changed that for the game, they would have to change the entire story of the game, because that's just it would be a kind of a mess.
I mean, and they're not going. It's not like they're going back and changing the actual content of the previous episodes. They're just changing the end credits. So the person playing Vanya is now Elliot Page.
Yeah. I remember when she got her start in Canada. Well, she's Canadian. Ellen Page was. I don't know where she lives now, but probably in LA or something. But just like what's his name? The guy who plays Scott Pilgrim.
Michael Cera.
Yes, he's from. I think he's from Hamilton, Ontario, something like that. He's not far from the city I live in, but that's where he grew up for most of his life. And so, like, doing Scott Pilgrim versus the World in Canada, I mean, that entire movie was filmed in Toronto. That's not too far away from where he actually lived growing up. So I imagine that was a real treat for him to come back to Toronto and film an entire movie that's set in Toronto, technically. Because it's very rare. Most movies like that are filmed in Toronto are about Toronto. It's very rare for that to happen. That most movies are about Toronto that are filmed in it. Because, like, I mean, look at Suicide Squad, filmed in Toronto, and it was supposed to be Gotham City, and now they're doing a new movie in Toronto that's Gotham City as well. I can't remember what it's called.
Well, when they find the actual Gotham, let me know.
Yeah.
Actually, an interesting little tidbit that I heard with one of the first crossovers between the Marvel universe and the DC universe. They explained why they have these cities that don't exist anywhere else. Their Earth is actually bigger.
Oh, Interesting.
So there is more land mass, so they can drop in cities like Metropolis and Gotham and Coastal City and
Yep.
all this stuff.
And that mysterious island that nobody's ever seen before, even though it's the same spot that we've been crossing over 1,000 years.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's one of those things where that was kind of their comment. I think it was Rascalin that pointed that out last week. Might have been that it was just, it was when they first when Superman first sees the Marvel Earth, it's smaller. He makes the comment that it's smaller. That's why that's their explanation as to why DC has different cities, whereas Marvel uses actual cities. Which is just it's an interesting little way of answering some of the questions. But yeah, we have been going for about 3 hours and 20 minutes now, so I think we have. I think we can call it a night.
Absolutely.
As
Oh, we can, but do we want to?
I do, because I don't know if I want to go. I don't know if I want to go to sleep or open up Blender and work on stuff. I haven't decided yet.
I saw that art you did. You posted.
Considering that you said you only got a 6-hour power nap, I'm going to cast an executive vote of fucking sleep.
That's the question of, can I sleep? Am I ready to sleep? I'm tired, but I'm not.
Sleep.
It's one of those things where it's like, I'm tired, but I don't know if I'm necessarily sleepy. It's a problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys,
I did see your artwork that you posted on Discord.
Oh yeah,
that was really cool. That background almost looked like. Did you make that background, or
yes.
was that? Okay.
Yeah, that is, well, except for the door. The door is just a picture of the door from the cockpit of the Falcon.
Okay.
But yeah, the corridor, the rest of the corridor was, that was modeled from basically from one reference photo.
That's awesome. Very, very good job.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
But yeah, as always, guys, thank you very much for being here. I'm going to go ahead and do the outro and call it a night.
All right. Have a good one. Take care.
All right, everybody. As always, thank you guys very much for watching. Whether you filtered in, whether you've been lurking in the background, or whether you watch this later, it's greatly appreciated. As always, if you like the video, don't forget to pound the like button. If you're new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We do this about every week. If you are able to, there are options to help out the channel down below as far as financially with the Ko-fi page and the Patreon page. There are, if you want to be kept up to date of when we go live and do stuff, make sure to ring the bell, but also check out the social media links in the description down below, the Facebook page, the Twitter account, and the Discord channel, where we talk about all kinds of stuff like this. All of that so that you can stay tuned for more from Ollamh Productions. Cheerio!